Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you're watching first part of What If Naruto was trained by a legendary Power Ranger. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Always taking no time. Let's start the story.
Kitsune no Kyuubi, regarded as one of the most powerful demons in world history. Actually, it's just a mindless servant of its superior, a superior that, during its illustrious reign, had wiped out a large portion of the universe. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, a human child, was destined to be a Kyuubi. This is his tale. The third Hokage of Konoha sighed as he gazed at the child's sleeping form in a crib in his office. He found out that a ninja under his command had attempted to kill the child less than an hour ago. The third was now concerned about what to do with the child, but fortunately he was stopped. The third turned to see a man in an odd gold armor standing there with his arms crossed and leaning against the wall after hearing a voice from the window behind him say, "Tragic, isn't it?" In anticipation of an attack in the event that this was an assassin, the third asked, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" A man in his 50s with long brown hair with gray strands tied in a ponytail and dejected brown eyes, wearing jeans and a gold t-shirt, said, "Sorry about that, I had a long trip to get here and sadly I had not made it in time to stop the Kyuubi." The gold armor vanished when the man said, "Power down." The third one inquired, "Who are you and what do you mean?" The individual replied, "Sorry, my name is Tommy and I am one of the Power Ranger, or I should say the last of them. The rest of my team was killed by the creature who is the master of Kyuubi. Omega. I was at the command center when I was alerted to the Kyuubi being awakened Aegean, and I came as soon as I could, but I was too late to stop it and now it is sealed inside this boy. He looks like his father." "I don't understand," said the third. Tommy said, "Look, this is a long story, and it may sound a little unrealistic, but I can prove it. About 20,000 years ago, Omega first appeared. He then proceeded to destroy world after world in a systematic manner. Eventually, after almost 500 years, a group of the universe's best scientists came up with a plan to stop him. They created the first Power Rangers by combining the best fighters and technology in the universe. Teaching them how to use the powers, they were able to defeat Omega and then imprison him in stone, where he should have remained for all eternity. The Rangers gained fame, but a new evil emerged determined to conquer the galaxy, so the Rangers went to fight him. History keeps repeating itself as some being decides to take over the universe, passing on their abilities to new warriors and continuing the legacy. About 3,000 years ago, one of these beings discovered Omega prison but was unable to free himself because the original Zords were the key to both imprisonment and release. But as time went on, no one knew where to find those Zords or how to use them. That was until one of the Green Rangers discovered them by accident. Unfortunately, the man may have been strong, but he was also an idiot. He decided to use them in battle without ever trying to use them or learning to control them, so he did not know that they were nearly out of power and he was killed, but the Zords were not. The Zords, when they were hid, had their power cells destroyed, so Omega would never be free. The creature who killed the Green Ranger took his power coin but also the Zords and discovered the problem. He was also the creature who discovered Omega's prison. He tried to release Omega, but since he used an incompatible power source, he only partially released him and in the process was killed. Omega body is still sealed in the prison, however his mind and spirit were not, and he was able to make alliances with the most corrupt creatures in the galaxy. The tailed beast, you call them. The Rangers lost track of them for a while and they wound up hiding the original Zords, but because of what they learned from them they became extremely powerful. Now they travel from world to world seeking out large populations of humans and attacking them, trying to find the correct power source for the Zords so they can release Omega. "That's an interesting story, but I don't believe you without some kind of proof," the third person said as he stood there. Tommy handed the third a small device and said, "I knew that was coming, so I will show you my proof here." After glancing at it, the third realizes he has fainted. After Tommy picks Naruto up and returns to the Hokage, the three depart in a golden flash of light. When the third awakens, he is in an unfamiliar room filled with machines and other unfamiliar objects. After following the sound of a baby crying, he discovers Naruto and Tommy in a room, where Tommy is feeding Naruto and saying, "Welcome to the command center." As he prepared to attack, the third asked, "Why did you bring me here and what's going to happen now?" After a moment, the third person took Naruto from Tommy, who stood up and said, "Follow me and I will show you the proof." Following, Tommy led the third into a massive room that was noticeably larger than Konoha. Tommy then pulled a lever, causing the third to back off in terror as the Kyuubi was seated behind a massive cage on one side of the room. The third person scanned the room and noticed a number of other creatures, but they didn't resemble the Kyuubi. The third one questioned, "What's going on here and why is Kyuubi freed and how is Naruto still alive?" They were made of metal, but Kyuubi was organic. Tommy responded, "Remember how I told you that the tailed beast go and try and find the power source to free Omega? Well, Your planet is not the first to learn to seal them into humans, and as such they have found a way to get free. They trick some power-hungry human into searching out the tailed beast for power and then sealing them into Omega prison, but in truth all they are doing is freeing them from the seal, and Omega sends them off planet while the humans are under what you call a genjutsu. Well, what I did was remove the Kyuubi from Naruto using a method we have learned to save the human, but I left part of the Kyuubi in him, namely Kyuubi power and healing ability, so he can absorb it. This way I know that Kyuubi won't escape, and maybe I can find out who they have given Omega to so I can get it and try and find a way to destroy him. The third person asked, "What are these other creatures? They're the size of some summon bosses but made of metal." Sadly, those are the Zords me and my team used before they died 15 years ago on another planet when we walked into a trap set by Omega's henchmen. The third person asked, "So where is this command center and what are you planning to do now?" Tommy replied, "This command center is actually about an hour's travel from your village. I had brought it here with me when I was alerted to the Kyuubi being here. It's hidden under a very powerful shield that makes it impossible to find without a ranger's help." The third inquired, "If what you say is true, then why did the Kyuubi attack several times throughout history along with the other beast?" Tommy replied, "Simple. Scouting, they would attack a village and see how they were advancing, and if they were advancing in the right direction then they would go to another planet and then come back, making people believe they were asleep somewhere. If it is not progressing like they want, then they would destroy all life on the planet." In response, the third said, "You still have not told me what you plan." Tommy murmured, "I am not a young man any longer. I have maybe 10 to 20 years most likely left to live. I need to find someone to pass on the secrets of the Power Rangers. That way the legacy continues. I want to teach the boy and make him the next Power Ranger." Thirdly, "But why him?" Tommy replied, "Simple. The boy's going to have a hard life. Nothing you say or do will change that. Sooner or later people are going to come looking for the Kyuubi under Omega control and will take him and kill him. If I take him under my wing, I can make him one of the strongest fighters in the galaxy, able to defeat any who work for evil, and hopefully he can continue what I have left." "How do you know the boy's father?" inquired the third. Tommy stated, "I was monitoring the battle on my way here and heard what his dad said to him, and I even recorded it so I can show him when he gets older." Taking a deep breath, the third person said, "I don't have a choice, do I?" Tommy uttered the words, "Not really," with a faint smile. The third replied, "Fine, but I want him to also be a ninja like his father, one for our village." Tommy responded, "That's fine. I know some things about chakra I can teach him, and if you want I can come 4 times a year to your office to pick up stuff you want him to learn and teach it to him, but I will not be bringing him with me until he's ready to face the challenges. I don't want him tainted by hate. This place has defenses that make it where nothing can get in here without a power coin, and I have all of them." "What about the Green Ranger one? You said it was captured," inquired the third. Tommy replied, "I have that also. When I first became a ranger I was put under mind control by an evil witch, and she had gotten the coin. She wanted me to destroy the rangers, but I was freed from it and soon became the leader of the rangers." "So how do I get back and what do I tell the people of the village?" sighed the third. Tommy replied, "The truth. The boy left the village with a special sensei to make sure the seal never fails and also to make sure that he can become strong enough to serve the village as a ninja someday." The third individual replied, "Fine, I hate to say it, but I believe you. How'd I leave?" After taking Naruto, Tommy pressed a button on the wall, causing the third Hokage to faint and enter his office. "Well, Naruto, this is going to be an interesting time," Tommy said as he and Naruto walked out of the room. After 6 years, Tommy entered the command room with a visitor while Naruto was seated there. "Who is he, sensei?" Naruto asked, glancing at Tommy. Tommy replied, "This is a friend I wanted you to meet. He will be training with you every now and then. Naruto, I would like to introduce you to Rock Lee." 14 years have passed since the Kyuubi attack team guy's first C-rank mission took place around 20 miles from Konoha to prevent a gang of bandits from threatening a commercial route. The group they had located turned out to be bigger than they had been told. As a group of 10 charged at him from the front, Guy yelled, "Defensive formation, watch each other's backs." While Neji was obstructing the group approaching from the right, Lee assumed a fighting stance and charged a group approaching from the left. When a bandit leapt from a tree and came down toward her with his sword out, ready to kill her, Tenten was only injuring the merc with his weapons. As he blocked another adversary and delivered a Juken strike to the man's heart, Neji shouted, "Tenten above." Tenten was frozen in place as she looked up when a white blur passed by, stating, "Elemental attack. Tiger kick." The man was struck by the blur with enough force to break a tree, causing everyone to turn to stare at the newcomer. They noticed a figure in white armor with a black visor standing there. Lee briefly grinned but covered it up. The figure then produced a strange blaster and yelled, "Wind elemental blaster. Fire." He shot out multiple balls of wind energy, which struck several men, causing them to scream in agony as cuts appeared on their bodies. The figure then said, "Sorry for interfering with your mission, but I could not stand to see an ally killed." Then he vanished from view, and the remaining bandits all let out a cry as they fell to the ground, their bodies covered in cuts. Tenten inquired, "Who was that?" Guy replied, "I don't know, but he finished the mission for us. Let's tie these men up and take them back to Konoha and report this to the Hokage." Lee glanced at the person and pondered. "What were you doing here, Naruto-kun? You never leave the command center and it's not time for your return yet, or is it?" Then replied. His youthfulness was burning brightly. "Don't you agree, Guy-sensei?" And pondered. "God, I hate having to hide my true skills, but it won't do us any good for people to learn I was trained as a ranger." Tenten and Neji moaned when Guy said, "Yes, he was not that we're done. Let's race to Konoha." Wearing a white shirt, black pants, and a white partial face mask, a 5'10" blonde boy with hair that was spiky on top and grown out down half his back, a la Kakashi, approached the Hokage's secretary and declared, "I have an appointment with the Hokage." After giving him a quick glance, the secretary said, "No, you don't, kid. Now leave before I get your parents." When she said, "Hey, you can't go back there," the boy continued to walk past her desk and toward the doors, saying, "Suit yourself. Kid, you can't go in there. The Hokage is too busy to mess with little kids like you," one of the two Anbu who materialized in front of him said. With his finger up to his chin, the boy said, "Really? Then how about you open the door for me?" He then leapt into the air and performed a vertical roundhouse kick, knocking the two guards up and into the door, breaking their hinges as both feet struck the Anbu beneath the chin. "What is it that you felt you needed to see me about that you would attack two of my men?" the boy asked. Ignoring the fact that both of the guards were knocked out, the secretary was staring, and the third glanced up from his paperwork to see two of his Anbu knocked out. The kid replied, "I was told to come here and tell you that Tommy has passed away, Hokage-sama." With wide eyes, the third person questioned, "Naruto, is that you?" Naruto replied, "Yeah, it's me. Naruto Namikaze. I was going to be coming back soon anyways, but he passed away, so I thought I might as well come back ahead of time. The secretary and the guards were not going to let me in, so I just bypassed them. So to say, you really need to work on teaching them not to underestimate anyone." With a nod, the third person asked, "So what do you plan to do now?" As he looks at the corner of the room, the third nods and a genjutsu falls, and Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai are all standing there. Naruto sighed and said, "Well, I guess I came back to be a ninja of this village, but if the three in the corner under the genjutsu is any impression of what a Junin is like based on the amount of chakra they have, then I am going to be slightly sick by the lack of skills." "How could you tell we were there?" inquired Kurenai. Naruto laughed and said, "Simple. I could hear a perverted giggle as well as when the lady told him to shush. I also smelled cigarette smoke over there, and I notice your pipe on your desk has not been lit in several hours. I would say, what good is it to try and hide when you give away your position with noise and smell?" pointing at them. "Are you really a Namikaze?" inquired Kakashi. Naruto laughs and replies, "Yeep, Sharingan Kakashi. I am your sensei's son. I also see we have the Genjutsu mistress Kurenai and the former fire temple guard Asuma, son of the Sandaime Hokage." "How do you know everyone here, Naruto?" inquired the third. Naruto exclaims, "Whenever Sensei left to come see you, he would stop at each of the hidden villages and pick up a bingo book from each of the villages and had me memorize them all. He said knowledge is just as good as strength, and knowing both your allies and enemies would make you better." "How has your other training been going?" asked the third, nodding. Naruto replied, "I am nearly as good as Sensei was. So what do you have need of me to do to be a ninja here?" The third replied, "Do a henge replacement and a bunshin, and then I will make you a ninja." After giving it some thought and grinning, Naruto went through hand signs that no one could recognize and declared, "Done." According to the third, "But you have not done anything." Naruto replied, "Really? Look behind the three in the corner and tell me what's wrong." With nosebleeds, everyone turned and blew back. Naruto, sexy without jutsu, was standing behind them. After everyone had stood up, the third person asked, "What happened?" "Simple. I created a cage bunshin behind them, replaced myself with it, and then used my sexy no jutsu to show my henge. I used a distraction of doing hand signs so you would not catch what I was doing." Naruto then vanished into smoke, and the naked Naruto reverted to his original form. "How did you do it without smoke or hand seals?" inquired Kakashi. Smirking, Naruto continued, "The smoke is my secret, but any jutsu, because of how I train with cage bunshins, I can get my mind and body trained to use them without hand signs. However, I am limited to jutsu that require 5 or less to work. So am I a ninja now, or do I need to show the next version of my jutsu?" with a grin. The third replied, "No, that's quite alright, Naruto. So are you going to use your last name, or how do you want to do it?" Naruto paused for a moment and replied, Actually, I would rather people not know it yet. That's why I have the face mask so no one can tell who I am. I don't want to draw too much attention to myself yet, but I would like for you to draw up a scroll that I can show as proof when the time comes. For now I am just Naruto, no last name." The third individual replied, "Very well, I will trust your judgment on this. And do you plan to reveal the other thing yet or what?" Naruto replied, "Not yet. I don't want to show that until I get a lead on Omega or forced to show it." "So you're going to go after that, huh?" The third sighed. Naruto took a breath and said, "Sensei told me that he already recorded one has left, so that means they are starting to track them down. I believe you know what I am talking about." The third replied, "Yes, I know, and in fact I believe I might have a lead for you, but it will take some time to gather information." Naruto replied, "Well, I got plenty of that and I won't go off in blind rage. If you're worried about that, Sensei has taught me how to be cool and calm in battle." "Well," said the third, "where would you like to stay?" Naruto replied, I will find a place after I get some money. Maybe I can find someone to roommate with." With a heian in hand, the third wrote something on a piece of paper and said, "Take that to the academy and wait until your sensei arrives. You are on Team 7 with Sasuke and Sakura." In a whirl of wind chakra, Naruto snatched it and walked away, grinning at the sensei's faces. "I've never seen a wind shushin before," Asuma remarked. Kakashi replied, "He's interesting. Who was his other teacher and what other skills does he have?" The third sighed and replied, "His other teacher was the last master of an ancient fighting style that was almost never recorded, but very good. Naruto won't show them unless he deems it necessary, so don't try and force it, Kakashi. Also, I will say this: once and only once his teacher removed the Kyuubi from Naruto but left all of the Kyuubi chakra and healing abilities, so if he uses them, don't worry about the fox." Kakashi questioned, "How is that possible? Sensei's seal is too advanced to mess with," as everyone's eyes widened. The third replied, "I don't know the actual process, but from what I was told about the Kyuubi and the other tailed beast, and the fact I saw the Kyuubi several hours after its sealing in a huge prison while Naruto was in my arms as a baby, so I know it's true." Naruto Sensei trained Naruto to pass on what he knows since his years were catching up with him, since he knew Naruto would most likely have been killed before he was as old as he is now. After all, I had to stop an assassination on him myself that very day. Taking a deep breath, Kakashi remarked, "Well, things are going to be interesting." The fourth replied, "More than you know, Kakashi. Those two guards who are still out were knocked out without chakra, or we would have felt it." When Naruto reached the third destination, he saw two girls fighting to enter the academy and then squabbling over a seat without even realizing there were two. He watched all the children inside and listened to the teacher. When the teacher reached Team 7, he used Wind Shushin to appear and say, "Naruto, Team 7 third member." He was using chakra to hang onto the building, and he handed the paper to Iruka while ignoring the shocked looks he was receiving from everyone. Iruka had just stated, "Okay, Team 7 is Sakura, Sasuke Uchiha, and your last member is." There was a sudden gust of wind, and a figure said, "Naruto, Team 7 third member." He handed Iruka the paper while grinning behind his mask and ignoring the shocked expressions. Iruka glanced at it and responded, "I see, so you are the replacement. I have never seen you before at the academy. How did you become a ninja?" Naruto stated, "I was an apprentice away from the village until my sensei recently passed away, so Hokage-sama decided to put me with a team for now." "Well, welcome to Konoha. Now take a seat," Iruka said, nodding. Mizuki said, "Why don't you take off your face mask and show everyone what you look like?" as Naruto nodded. Naruto replied, "Sorry sir, but my clan's rules don't allow me to show my face to anyone other than my lovers." In an arrogant tone, Sasuke inquired, "What clan are you a member of?" "The only blonde hair clan I know of are the Yamankos." Naruto stated, "My clan was destroyed during the Kyuubi attack, which I was luckily away from the village at the time. Because of my clan's reputation, I am not allowed to reveal my last name until certain things are achieved, and that includes my clan name, so sorry." Iruka replied, "Very well, the Hitaki clan also has a rule similar to that, so I shall let you keep it on then. Now please take a seat." Naruto laughed and wondered, "Where do you think I got the idea from? If you're a teacher at the academy, you should know when a student is blowing smoke up you ass." Sighing, Iruka stated, "Team 8 is Hinata, Kiba, and Shino." As Naruto sat down opposite Kiba, Kiba said, "Hey man, what was that thing you did when you arrived?" Iruka replied, "Team 9 is in active duty, so Team 10 is Ino, Choji and Shikamaru. Please wait for your teachers." As both instructors departed, Naruto remarked, "A simple shushin. Nothing really, so your names are Kiba, huh?" A dog barks at Kiba's head as he nods, and Naruto says, "Nice to meet you, Akamaru." "How did you understand him? Nobody outside of my clan can understand dogs." Kiba asked, his eyes wide. Naruto laughed as he said, "My sensei taught me how to understand all animals," while pondering. "Truth is the earring I have in my ear translate all known languages in the galaxy as well as animals, so in case I run into an alien I can understand him or her or it." Incredulous, Kiba questioned, "Who was your sensei?" "His name was Tommy, and out of respect that all I will say about him," Naruto sighed, regretfully. At that moment, the door opened, Asuma and Kurenai entered, and they said, "Team 8 and 10, come with us." Everyone began to get up and leave, giving Naruto a few curious looks as they went. "I'm Sakura and that's Sasuke-kun, the rookie of the year," Sakura said after they had left. "Nice to meet you. Tell me, do you know anything besides the simple, henge, replacement, and bunshin as jutsu?" Naruto asked, taking a book out of his pocket. With a sense of pride, Sakura remarked, "I can dispel genjutsu also. Why? What about you, know anything else?" Naruto asked, ignoring her. Naruto said, "I see, you're Itachi brother, correct?" Sasuke just HMPHED, and his head spun around so quickly that he asked, "How do you know him?" "I remember reading the name Uchiha somewhere and so I was looking it up and saw his profile here, I guess with you and him and Kakashi that's all the Sharingans in the world," Naruto said, turning the book he was reading around and displaying a picture of his brother to Sasuke. In the hopes that there might be another Uchiha out there, Sasuke inquired, "Who is Kakashi?" After turning the book around and flipping through a few pages, Naruto declared, "Sharingan Kakashi, known to have copied over 1,000 jutsu, student of the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha and a major pervert." "It doesn't say anything about him being a pervert," Sakura remarked as she read it. Naruto replied, "Look at the picture of him, see the book he's reading in it, it's Icha Icha Paradise, an adult fantasy book all about sex, that's how I know he's a pervert." As he read it, Sasuke asked, "How does he have the Sharingan?" When Naruto said, "Don't know but you could ask him, isn't that right Kakashi-sensei?" The other two turned to face the door where Kakashi was at that moment. Kakashi departed in a flurry of leaves after saying, "My first impression of you is two of you suck, meet me on the roof." When they felt a gust of wind and realized Naruto was gone, Sakura and Sasuke both turned one side, the other was envious, and they both went to the roof. "This team is going to go to hell fast unless something drastic happens. Mind if I tie them together and hang them off Dad's nose for a few hours?" Naruto said, grinning. Shortly after Kakashi arrived, Pinkies is a fangirl who rather watch Sasuke than train, and Sasuke an Avenger. Kakashi said, "You different," as he raised his head from his book. Naruto replied, "You have no idea anyways, I think you should know I would like to talk to you sometime about Dad, all I have is a recording of him during the ceiling and that's all I know about him." Kakashi glanced at Naruto and replied, "Perhaps since you're being honest I will also, the council is forcing this team to pass and making me work with the Uchiha more, so sorry if you feel left out." Snorts Naruto as he says, "Damn politician always fuck up a good thing, the only thing I really need is a few more wind jutsu since I have a double affinity for it." Kakashi put down his book and replied, "That's rare, I don't know many wind jutsu but I can ask Asuma to compare notes, he's the only wind user in the village and I only got a few." As Sakura and Sasuke emerge through the roof door, Naruto nods and says, "Thanks, here's the team." He looks over his shoulder. As everyone sat down, Kakashi said, "Okay, now that everyone's here, let's introduce ourselves. Why don't you go first?" Sakura asked. Kakashi replied, "I am Kakashi, I like and dislike a lot of things and I have hobbies." "How do you have the Sharingan?" inquired Sasuke. Ignoring the question, Kakashi grinned and said, "Thanks for volunteering, you first." "I'm Sasuke Uchiha," he said, narrowing his eyes, "and while I don't have any dreams, I do have ambitions. To kill a certain man and restore my clan." "Okay, your turn, Pinky," Kakashi said. "Skip it. Everyone is aware of hers." Says Kakashi, "Okay, Wind Boy." Leaning back, Naruto said, "Name's Naruto and that's all you need to know." In a flurry of leaves, Kakashi said, "Well, tomorrow all of you are to meet at training ground 7 at 5 a.m. for a test and don't eat or you will throw up." Ignoring the shocked looks from both of his teammates as they rushed to the edge to see what was happening, Naruto smirked and said, "In case you can't figure it all, we are a team and that means teamwork CYA." He then leapt off the roof and glided down to the ground. After about an hour of strolling around the town, Naruto noticed a help wanted sign in a window. He looked up to see that the building was the Wolf Claw weapon store. A bell rang as he entered, and an elderly man with brown eyes and hair said, "Hello. Welcome to the Wolf Claw, how may I be of service to you today?" as he looked up from behind the counter. Naruto replied, "Well, I saw your sign in the window needing help and I just recently returned to the village and I was looking for a way to get some extra money. Do you have any experience with weapons of blacksmithing? Dustin asks, nodding. Naruto stated, my sensei had me learn the art of blacksmithing as a skill to fall back on should I ever be forced to quit being a ninja. I also am very skilled into the use of swords and I can make pretty much any mass-produce item and also some customs. Alright, tell me what you think of that sword, both good and bad, Dustin said, grabbing a sword from beneath his counter and tossing it to Naruto. Since it was missing its sheath, Naruto examined it. He placed his finger at the base of the blade next to the hilt and noticed that it was balanced. He then flicked the blade into the air, grabbing it with his right hand as it began to fall and swinging it in a figure 8 around his arms while bringing his left hand in to avoid cutting it. He repeated this a few times before flicking it into the air once more and catching it with both flat palms. He stated, the blade is perfectly balanced and is made from great material, however it has 3 major flaws. Dustin squinted and inquired, and what are they? Naruto continued. First, the blade is not grounded. An enemy who uses lightning attacks can target the sword and paralyze or kill a person based on how strong of a jutsu it was. Second, the blade cannot use elemental affinities. I tried to send wind through it but it would not accept it. The blade is not strong enough to handle the extra force from it. The last thing is if a person tries and use elemental affinities on the sword, it weakens the blade. As he cut the blade into 5 pieces. Dustin was speechless and replied, I am impressed. That blade was my first attempt at blacksmithing when I first started and you found all 3 flaws. You said you just returned. What rank are you and where are you from? Naruto stated, I was born around the time of the Kyuubi attack but was taken away from the village since my family was killed, leaving me the only survivor. My sensei trained me until just recently when he passed away and I returned to the village. I was just assigned as a genin today. Dustin replied, I see. Well, let me tell you about the job I need help with. The Chunin exams are going to be here the next time around and every time there we always sell out of basic kunai and shurikens no matter how many I make. I also make some for the guests who come for the finals with the exam date on them. I want to go ahead and start stockpiling them so maybe I can make a bigger profit. Since you're a ninja of this village, I need you to work a total of 20 hours a week to make my mass-produce kunai and shurikens including sharpening. I can pay you 10 for every 50 you make. What do you say? I want to have around 1000 by the time the exams hit along with any that I sell before then. Naruto mulled it over and replied, I can do the work no problem, but I was wondering if instead of payment if we could work out some kind of trade. What have you got in mind? Asked Dustin, rubbing his chin. Naruto replied, like I told you, I recently returned and I have yet to find a place to stay. I was wondering if I might be able to stay here, even if it's in the floor until I find a place to stay, and in return I will work 1 month free. If not, I would like a sleeping bag and a tent so I can sleep in the woods as my payment for the 1 month free. Either way you come out ahead saving around 500 in labor cost and I don't have to worry about finding a place for the night. Dustin paused for a moment before saying, tell you what, how about this? I have an extra room here since my wife and I only had a daughter before she passed away. I can let you use it as long as you like. In return you work here for free and I will allow you 1 standard set of kunai and shurikens every 2 weeks and provide breakfast every morning. In return you work the 20 hours a week for free. Naruto was thinking, does the standard set come with the ability to add nature chakra to them? Because I have trained so much all my attacks have it now. Dustin replied, they don't, but I can give you a set like those instead, but it will have to be every 3 weeks. Naruto held out his hand and said, then we got a deal. Name's Naruto. With a shake, Dustin greeted it with, welcome Naruto Namikaze. With wide eyes, Naruto questioned, how? Dustin continued, simple. There have only been 2 families in Konoha that have blonde hair and blue eyes around the time of Kyuubi attack, the Yamanakas and the Namikaze. I also was one of Minato's friends, so I knew about you going to be born. Also, the fact is wind affinities are rare in Konoha. The only other wind user in the entire village beside your dad is Asuma Saratobi. Naruto took a breath and replied, I guess it can't be helped. I am not trying to draw attention to myself intentionally, and using my last name would do exactly that. Besides the Hokage, only 4 others know who I am besides you, so how about you let me get started working on those weapons? Dustin laughed and replied, sure. The forge is this way. I know you said you're skilled and all, but I want you to make a standard pack of 20 shurikens and 20 kunais and let me judge the quality. No problem. Naruto grinned as they entered the forge. Dustin turned and walked away, saying, well, I will be up front. When you finish bring them to me and I will check them. With a sly smile, Naruto surveyed the large forge, made 10 cage buncheons and set to work as another loaded coal. One began pumping air into the fire, 2 others set up the sharpening tables. One examined the metal and identified some that could be melted down for conventional weapons, and the remaining individuals began setting the molds and melding the metal. When Naruto emerged from the forge 30 minutes later, Dustin arched an eyebrow. Naruto then unfolded 2 cloth scrolls that contained the shurikens and kuniyas. Dustin's eyebrows shot up, and he took one of each, examined it, and hurled them both at a target dummy on the wall. He gaped as they both went through the dummy, and he inquired, "How did you get done so quick, and how are they so sharp?" He raised his hand and the wind gathered around it as he spoke. "I used my elemental affinity to make the fires hotter while my cage buncheons helped speed the process up, and then I also used my wind to help sharpen them to the point that they could slice through steel. I figured for a test you should see my best. Normally I won't make them as sharp since people could hurt themselves with them if they think they're normal." Dustin looks at him and says, "I think I am going to like having you around since you're done, and I don't want to waste my material yet to get started making them all. Why don't you grab a broom and clean up the store?" Dustin retrieves the weapons, shakes his head at the craftsmanship, places them on a display counter, and creates a sign that reads, "New Legend Killer Weapons, 50 for matching set." Naruto approaches, grabs the broom, and begins sweeping. As he keeps sweeping, Naruto grinned and reflected, "Thanks, sensei, your instruction on how to fix the Zords is really helpful." When Naruto heard the words, "Yes," the mysterious man's youth burns brightly. A few hours later, he was raking the dirt off the front sidewalk and shook his head, recognizing the voice. When Tenten said, "Hey you, what are you doing sweeping in front of my family store?" he kept sweeping even though he could see Team Guy approaching the Hokage tower. Lee's eyes widened when Naruto looked up, and he said in a gentle voice, "Hello Lee, it's good to see you again. I work here. Miss, it's a pleasure to meet you." "Naruto-kun, it's been a while since I saw you. Your youthfulness is burning brightly," Lee exclaimed as he approached Naruto and gave him a hug. With a wince, Naruto said, "Lee, that's one." Everyone gave him a suspicious look. Lee yells, "But Naruto-kun, I have not seen your flames of youth burning in nearly 2 years." "That's too, Lee," Naruto remarked sternly, "no more youth speeches and quit being so loud." Lee began to yell, Okay, I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, please stop," but was interrupted when he was blown into the air and began to fly in a miniature funnel cloud that would not land. Everyone's eyes widened when Naruto said, "Not until you agree to shut up about youth and quiet down." After seeing Naruto lift Lee into the air while still holding the broom in his hand and not making any hand signs, Sasuke, who had been searching for Naruto, approaches and says, "Fight me." Lee said, "Okay, deal, Naruto-kun, I swear on my honor to stop screaming about youth. Now stop before I throw up," while Naruto ignored him. When Naruto ignores Sasuke, who is furious, he grabs Naruto by the arm, turns him around, and says, "Fight me, now." Naruto loses focus on Lee, who is hovering around 20 feet in the air, and he lands on top of Sasuke, who is pale. Those who are not ill snicker at Sasuke's misfortune after he opens his mouth and throws up all over him. Naruto then remarked, "I would Sasuke, but at the moment you stink." With his honor damaged, Sasuke rises and storms off. "Now Lee, as I was saying, it's good to see you Aegean," Naruto said as he turned around. "It's good to see you Aegean. How sensei," Lee said calmly as he stood up and his color returned. With a downward gaze, Naruto uttered, "He passed away, Lee." Tenten said, "So Lee, are you going to introduce us to your friend?" as Lee glanced down once more. Lee responded, "Sorry about that, Neji, Gaizen-C, Tenten, this is Naruto na." Naruto cut him off and said, "Just Naruto, Lee, just Naruto. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I am afraid I must get back to work so I can catch up with you Aegean later, Lee." "It's good to have you back and thanks for earlier," Lee said, nodding. Smirking, Naruto remarked, "No problem, you know me." After Lee and his group depart, Dustin says, "So you and Lee know each other, huh?" Naruto replied, "Yeah, he trained with me and Sensei for a while because Sensei thought it would do me good to interact with other people since I hardly went to any towns or anything. My Sensei ran into him when he came to make a progress report on me." "Well, finish cleaning up and call it a day. We close in 10 minutes anyway," Dustin said, nodding. With a nod, Naruto resumes his work. Guy questioned, "So Lee, who was this man you call Sensei and who is your friend?" as the entire town stared at Lee. Lee stated, "That was Naruto-kun. Our Sensei was a man who trained Naruto-kun since birth and allowed me to learn a little about his way of fighting. In return I befriended Naruto-kun. I don't use what he taught me because it's like the lotus, it's not meant to be used unless certain things happen." Guy replied, "How come you never told me about him before?" Lee stated, "Out of honor for him Sensei, when I first met him I had let my temper get the best of me and beat 3 kids my age enough to send them to the hospital. He taught me how to use my anger wisely and not get the better of me. If it was not for him I would not be the person I am today," smugly. Tenten questioned, "So what's Naruto's story? You started to say more to his name but he stopped you. Why? And what did you thank him for earlier for? Everyone was in awe because they had never heard or seen Lee as he described. Lee stated, Naruto-kun is a very private person. If he wishes for you to know something he will tell you. As for that, let's just say that is a running story for us. I won't betray my first real friend trust even to my teammates. When they entered the Hokage tower, Neji responded, I don't know who he is but you have both quitted down and stopped acting like guys, so I am impressed. Lee replied, Tenten, if you don't mind can I come by and talk to Naruto-kun when we get done here? I would like to catch up with him, staring at her. When they entered the Hokage's office, Tenten replied, sure. After raising his head, the third person asked, Team 9, how was your mission? Guy stated, it started off bad but a mysterious person wearing white armor appeared and saved Tenten from a surprise attack and then took out the bandits quickly with some weird long-range weapon. I see, the third said, nodding, it was probably him then. Tenten inquired, who Hokage-sama? He left before we got a chance to say thanks. The third replied, I am sorry, it's a secret and only myself know, but I will pass your thanks on to him when I see him. Aegean. The third person asked, are you feeling okay Lee? You seem quite. As Lee continued to be silent. Guy's statement, Lee youthful friend Naruto just returned to the village and he learned a former sensei of his passed away, interrupted Lee's sentence. With wide eyes, the third said, you trained with Naruto and him? Lee replied, yes but only for a short period of time sir. I know what you're asking about but I did not go as far as Naruto-kun has, but I could if I chose to since Naruto-kun is now the master of it no doubt. After nodding, the third person said, well, if you do, let me know so I can put it in your file. Lee stated, I will Hokage-sama but I doubt I will. The reason I did not finish it was I made a mistake that nearly cost Naruto-kun and Sensei their lives. I did not feel at the time I was worthy of completing what they were teaching me and now I don't know. The third individual replied, very well, I will trust your judgment. Is there anything else I should know? Tenten replied, I have a question about Naruto. Is there anything I should know about him since he is working at my family store? The third replied, I am sorry but all information on Naruto is an S-class village secret and only he is allowed to reveal anything, but I will tell you he is no threat or anything if you're worried about that. Tenten said, thank you anyway, and nodded. The third individual replied, well, good job on your mission and I will have your pay for you tomorrow. Enjoy your evening. Tenten said, what was that about back there Lee? Something is not adding up with what I know about you and it's bothering me. What did you mean you almost cost them their lives? As Lee quietly walked beside Tenten as Team Guy left the office. Lee let out a sigh, Tenten. All I will say is that at one time the training was in a prison, I guess you could describe it, and I was tricked into letting a prisoner go. The prisoner would have killed both of them had they been a half a step slower. I blame myself for being gullible at the time and believing the criminal. It was stupid and they both forgave me for it, but I did not feel right about it. They both turned to see Naruto standing on a tree branch above them when a voice said, but as you said Lee, you were gullible because you were only 12 years old then. You're 15 now Lee and have more experience and should not keep blaming yourself. Lee responded, I see the wind is still your ally, so what's up? After taking a 3-inch wide bracelet from his pocket, Naruto threw it to Lee, saying, Sensei wanted me to give that to you and said we are both all that is left of the legacy. We must set an example for those who follow and make sure to continue what was started. After examining it, Lee remarked, but I'm not worthy. Naruto replied, what's the first lesson Sensei taught you Lee? Lee looked at him and said, believe in yourself and your allies. Even if you make a mistake you must move on and strive to ensure peace for those you protect. Naruto was saying, and you have Lee, that guy tricked you because you trust people. Now that you learned the lesson Lee, trust yourself. When he put it on his right arm and it clicked, Lee grinned and said, fine, you win. What is that thing? Tenten inquired. It's a family heirloom of senseis. It shows that we are trained in the arts of the old ways, Naruto remarked, glancing at her. You know that you're confusing, Tenten sighed. Naruto replied, how about a demonstration then to help you understand? Fine, Tenten said. After jumping down and placing his hand on each of their shoulders, Naruto vanished as the wind increased. Tenten asked, so what do we do and how did you know which training field was ours? After blinking and discovering that she was in her team's training area. I have my ways. Attack me with everything you got. You won't be able to touch me, Naruto smirked. Lee leapt into a tree and said, good luck, Tenten said. Fine. Then she produced 2 scrolls and performed a series of hand signals before yelling, Twin Rising Dragon. The 2 scrolls opened, and she leapt into the air, launching weapons at Naruto, who merely gave her a sidelong glance and crossed his arms. Tenten's aim was as accurate as ever, but she was surprised by what happened next. Her weapons began to spin around him and accelerate, and then she blinked, causing the weapons that had swung around Naruto to suddenly target the weapons that were coming down at him. She continued until she saw that Naruto was surrounded by just 2 more kuniyas, but they were moving incredibly quickly. A kuniya impaled both of her scrolls after she blinked, and they were blasted back in an instant. As she fell to the ground, unable to move, Naruto abruptly disappeared and appeared beside her. Naruto then delivered 4 jabs to her body, 1 to each hip and 1 to each shoulder. When she struck the ground, she was unable to move, and Naruto replied, "That is what I can do. The old ways is the most true form of hand-to-hand fighting in the galaxy. It can't be copied because you don't use chakra. Instead you use your body's own physical strength to target your enemy and either disable their ability to move or kill them with a touch. There are 16 places on the human body that one single glancing blow in this style can kill you." Tenten inquired, "How did you block my weapons like that? It's impossible to do that." Snorting, Naruto replied, "No, it's what happens when you master a nature affinity to the point I have to me. Wind is part of me and I can use it as a defense or an attack. You have never faced someone who uses wind jutsu, or you would know normal weapons don't work on them." Lee jumped down and said, "I see you as good as ever, Naruto-kun, so what are you going to do now?" When Tenten remained silent, she squeaks and says, "Well, I guess since she won't be able to walk or move her arms for at least 2 hours, I will take her back to her house and then get ready to go to bed since I have a busy day tomorrow." As Naruto sighs and picks up the Tenten up bridal style, Lee inquired, "Where will you be staying at, Naruto?" "I actually live at the weapon shop," Naruto declared. "CYA," he said, disappearing in a gust of wind. As he began to walk back toward the village, Lee glanced down at the object on his wrist and said, "I won't make the same mistake again." He stopped, closed his eyes, and faded out of sight for a short while before reappearing in the same location with all of Tenten's weapons and the scrolls she had left behind. At that moment, a cage bunchen of Naruto appeared, and Lee said, "You're welcome." The clone took them and walked away in a wind shushin, saying, "Thanks Lee and welcome back." Tenten said, "Go to the back door," as Naruto and he appeared in front of the store. The front will now be secured. Dustin sits there wriggling, blinking, and saying, "Now this is an unexpected surprise," as Naruto nods and moves to the back while still holding her. "To whom do I owe the honor of having my daughter returned in this manner?" As her father smirked at her, Tenten flushed, and Naruto explained, "I showed her what happens when a weapon user fights a wind user. She can't walk right now, but she should be able to in a few hours." "All right, take her in and show her to her room," Dustin said. "She'll tell you the location." Dustin looked up at the sky as Naruto nodded and entered, thinking, "This could get interesting, Minato." Then, as it rose in smoke, a clone with weapons appeared and declared, "These are hers." After following Tenten's instructions, Naruto seated her in a chair in her room and said, "Thanks, now get out." Before Tenten could respond, Naruto bowed and mockingly said, "Of course, master," and walked out of the room. On the door opposite Tenten's, he discovered a note that read, "Naruto, this is your room. The bathrooms are at the end of the hall." With a sly smile, Naruto entered his room, saw a plain bed and dresser, and decided to go to bed, thinking, "Well, this place will do for now." After getting out of the chair and working out the kinks in her muscles, Tenten lay on her bed for a short while. It was about 9 o'clock when she heard a gentle, romantic music emanating from above her house. She got up and walked out into the hallway, down to the stairs leading to the roof, and climbed them quietly. As the sound grew louder as she approached, she listened to the music as she eventually reached the door and cautiously opened the door to the roof. As she climbed onto the roof, she noticed Naruto sitting on the ledge with his back to her, playing a 2-foot silver flute. She stood there and listened to the music, which was a melancholic yet beautiful melody, and she turned to head back inside when Naruto paused and said, "If you want, you can come sit by me and listen." "I don't mind," he said, returning the flute to his mouth and playing without looking back. She walked over and was surprised when a warm breeze blew over her, taking away the slight chill she was feeling from the night air. Tenten was shocked to learn that she was there and decided to listen some more. She sat down next to him as he began to play another song, but he paused and said, "Close your eyes and listen if you really want to appreciate the music and get a surprise. I'm sure you'll enjoy it." Tenten stared at him as he closed his eyes and began to play again, and she closed her eyes and listened, but then she saw that it was not Konoha, but rather the view of a flying bird overlooking a gorgeous valley with a snow-capped mountain on either side. She gasped as the music carried her through the air, seeing everything with perfect clarity, and she was amazed, unaware that she had moved closer to Naruto, resting her head on his shoulder as he played, before slowly falling asleep with a dream about flying through the air like a bird, completely carefree and worry-free. After a while, Naruto stopped playing, grinned at Tenten as she fell asleep peacefully, and said, "You know I won't hurt her." He then turned to face Dustin, who was leaning against the wall that held the door so he could return inside. I know, I just came to listen to the music myself. Dustin remarked. Konoha hasn't been blessed with a dream melody in years. Do you need assistance, or can you bring her in? After putting the flute in his shirt, Naruto waved his arm and a soft wind picked her up, allowing him to carry her bridal style. I got her. Dustin replied, you really do have a wind affinity, huh Nami? Just Naruto, he said, shaking his head to stop him. I don't want my father to make others want to be like me. I understand, but I do have to question one thing, Dustin said, nodding. What do you intend to do to my daughter? Just friends for now, Naruto said as he approached Tenten and felt him lean into the crick in his neck. Prior to my return, Lee was the only other person I had ever met on this planet. Aside from my sensei, I've never met a human woman and don't have many friends, so I'm not sure what to anticipate. Dustin inquired, why do you keep making references like you've been on another planet or something? Nothing, Naruto sighed. Just the ramblings of a weary soul. All those years of training must have left me lacking in social skills. Should we enter? Tonight is going to be rainy. There isn't a cloud in the sky. What makes you sure it's going to rain? Dustin asked, glancing up at the sky. As he passed Dustin and descended the stairs to Tenten's room, Naruto grinned and remarked, the wind told me. He then carefully placed her in bed, covered her, and departed. So he's never really known anyone aside from Lee and his sensei, huh? Tenten thought as she opened her eyes. I'm glad Guy's sensei taught us to be aware of any movement in our environment. She turned over and relapsed into a deep, peaceful sleep. I wonder what Dad was going to say when he said Nami. After entering his room, Naruto lay down again in the hopes of having another nightmare before going to sleep. A glimpse of a dream. Tommy said, Naruto, this is a trap, go before they capture you. As well as Naruto stood next to him in his white ranger outfit. You have to carry on the tradition even though my time is already over. When Naruto noticed 100 talons, he said, but you're going to die, sensei. I'm still able to assist. Tommy grabbed Naruto's wrist as he said, power down. He then swiftly put his morpher in Naruto's hand and said, Alpha, teleport now. As soon as he saw his sensei get a sword in the back from Raven, the Talons leader, Naruto teleported with a white beam. Like the Talons, he was a bird-like man who was pure red rather than all black like crows and ravens. The Biju discovered that Omega had the right power source, and it was he who secured Omega's passage to the next world. Dreams end. Since it was already 5 in the morning, Naruto jumped out of bed, calmed himself, and said, I will not let his memory die. I will stop Omega once and for all. After getting ready for the day, Naruto went downstairs to the forge, shop, and living kitchen area. He smelled breakfast being prepared, so he entered the kitchen and saw Tenten dancing to a song she was singing herself. Naruto smirked because he recognized the song and took out his flute, starting to play it, which made Tenten jump and turn around, saying, don't scare me like that. She smiled and carried on singing as she returned to cooking, but Naruto ignored her as she played the next section of the song. After she was done cooking, Naruto put away his flute, came over to assist her in setting the table, asked, do you have any tea? And looked around. Tenten replied, yes, though the coffee pot is already full of coffee. Dad doesn't like tea in the mornings. That's okay, I can just drink water then, Naruto said. Tenten replied, why don't you just drink some coffee? It's fresh and hot. Tenten questioned, what? As Naruto muttered something while scratching the back of his head. Naruto replied, it puts me to sleep. Caffeine actually puts me to sleep, so I usually drink something with very little of it in it or none at all, while staring down. Tenten replied, I see, that's unusual but not unheard of. How about a glass of milk? With a smile, Naruto replied, yes, that will work. Naruto said, so, how did you sleep last night? As Tenten went to the refrigerator, took it out, and poured him a glass. Tenten replied, pretty good actually. What exactly was that dream I had? When she felt a cool breeze brush against her back and a warm breeze caress her cheek, she suddenly stiffened. Naruto gave her a genuine smile and said, that is the wind you dreamed, as if you were the spirit of the wind and flowing freely and wherever you wished to blow. Tenten asked, how do you do that? As he felt the wind blow away. As Naruto put it, do what? Tenten replied, control the wind like that. And in our fight yesterday and last night, now that I think about it, you made that warm wind blow over me to make it not so cool. How can you do that? I'm one with the wind. It's a part of me and we support each other to the point that it's basically automatically for me. It's part of my training I went through, Naruto said after briefly meeting her eyes. Silently, Tenten uttered, so you could teach me to control the wind? After giving her a quick glance, Naruto said, give me a moment. Tenten asked, blinking, what? Naruto took a breath and said, trust me, just walk to the door and back and I will tell you if I can teach you to control the wind. Tenten asked, so did you like what you see, after blinking and getting up to go to the door and back again? You're a water type, not a wind type, so I can't teach you wind, Naruto said with a smile. What makes you say that? Tenten inquired. Naruto reached for his hand and a wisp of it as he said, see, this wind is basically chaos and power, completely random and unpredictable. Now you are a water type, your moves are smooth and elegant, gentle and controlled, or raging and reserved. I can tell by the way you move and control yourself that you are a water type. That's not fair, I wish I could control it like you do, Tenten said, casting a downward glance. After giving his chin a scratch, Naruto turned to face her and inquired, when is your next team meeting? Tenten replied, tomorrow. Guys, Sensei gave us the day off since we just got back from one. Naruto started to speak, but he paused and sighed before leaving the room to make a clone and head toward the furnace to begin cleaning the table. Tenten thought, blinking, what just happened? Naruto swiftly assembled a group of Kage Bunshins and instructed them to begin producing the shurikens and kunai he had been hired to create. When Dustin came downstairs and noticed his daughter's curious expression, he said, what's wrong, dear? Tenten glanced at her dad and replied, well, I am not sure. I was talking one moment with Naruto and then the next he quickly got up and left the room heading for the forge. He was telling me one moment about how I was a water type and he was a wind type, and though the way he was talking he might have been willing to teach me to control water like he does wine, but then all of a sudden he got this look and quickly left. I don't understand. With a smile, Dustin said, I do. Then Tenten said, what is it then? Dustin poured himself a cup of coffee and said, sorry dear, you will have to find out on your own. Sounds like he's in the forge room. Tenten sighed, took a bite to eat, and blinked as she noticed that the plate the clones had cleared off the table was empty of food. She thought, I never saw him eat. I wonder what he looks like under that mask. As it rose in smoke, startling Tenten, the clone saw her expression and uttered, when you were walking for him as when he was eating. Pale, Tenten asked, did he read my mind? No. The look on your face was enough to figure out by simple observation what you were thinking, Dustin said, laughing. In the forge, Naruto grinned as the memories of the clones returned to him, but they ceased when he recalled his sensei's words. Rewind, Naruto. I want you to remember that you are the last ranger. I don't want you to be the last though, so promise me that you will find yourself a team and lead them to save the galaxy as I have, Tommy said, standing in front of a panting 6-year-old Naruto in a fighting stance while he waited for him to recover. Naruto replied, but Sensei, why should I find a team when you said it's the most painful thing ever to see your team die? It is, but you must keep in mind that a single chopstick can break easily, but many of them can hold together to support each other and endure much more, Tommy said, removing himself from his fighting stance. Naruto replied, I understand, so I need to go out and find skilled people and train them and pick the ones who are the best at the training. Then he said, no Naruto, the lessons I teach you are not to be shown to anyone. Remember, the Power Rangers are a symbol of hope to the universe. If they see you as a man, then that symbol is diminished. You have to keep your identity hidden from everyone except those you trust with your life. Those you trust with your life are the ones you should make as your team. Naruto got up and said, I understand, Sensei. Only show my true skills to my team and only choose a team I can trust with my life. Tommy let out a sigh. Something like that. You will have to figure it out on your own someday since you are my legacy. Finish the flashback. Naruto was thinking. No, I can't teach her because I can't trust her with my life. I just met her and I don't know what it is, but I don't feel right around her. She gets in under my guard too easily. I can't trust her with my life because I can't protect myself from her. If she becomes an enemy, I must distance myself from her. He kept on working. Since it was already 10 a.m., he paused after making about 200 and turned to face the wall, saying, well, I got time to take a shower before I have to meet my team. After hurriedly getting a change of clothes that were identical to the ones he was wearing except for the white cloak, Naruto went to the bathroom, showered, and changed. Tenten was seated behind the counter when he came downstairs, and she asked, so, do you have anything else besides those white cloths like that? Naruto paused. I guess you can call it a tradition. White always reminds me of the wind, and since you know, I am the wind, I only like to wear white. I got to meet my team. Wait, can I walk with you? Tenten asked after giving a brief grimace. Naruto experienced phantom pain in his knuckles. Rewind slap as he rubbed his swollen hand from the ruler that had just smacked across it. Naruto screamed and questioned, what the hell was that for, Sensei? Tommy replied, simple, you are to be a well-respected and mannered individual. You can't just go around being a loudmouth idiot. But what's the big deal? You asked me what I would do if someone asked me to go for a walk, and I said no. What's the big deal? Naruto said. Slap. The important thing is that you have to be courteous to people. Tommy stated, I'll slap your hand again if you don't remember. Finish the flashback. After rubbing his hand, Naruto replied, sure. As she walked to the back, Tenten grinned and said, great, just let me tell Dad. Dustin followed her as she walked back a short while later, saying, you kids have fun. He then sat down behind the counter. As Tenten walked out, Naruto held the door open for her and followed her, grinning and saying, sure thing. Your kid is a good kid, Minato, but his social skills are very lacking. Perhaps my daughter can help your son over that. Dustin thought as he watched them begin to leave. Indeed, they would make a charming pair. Tenten shivered a little as Naruto walked next to her and said, man, it's so cold here these days. As she rubbed her arms to avoid a puddle of water on the road from the early morning shower, she said, it looks like winter is coming early this year or something. After giving her a quick glance, Naruto removed his cloak and placed it over her shoulders, saying, it's not much, but it should help warm you up some. Tenten grinned and said, thanks. Naruto responded, it's made from a special, weather-resistant material from a place far away. As she pulled it closer, felt the material, blinked, and examined its strong fire jutsu can strike it and it won't even be touched. How did you never mind? Tenten said, this is unlike anything I've ever seen. It has a similar texture to silk, but it's different. Yeah, it's pretty unique and difficult to come by, Naruto said. I was fortunate to obtain it. With a nod, Tenten inquired, so who are your teammates? Naruto was saying, the Uchiha and some pink-haired fangirl named Sakura. Tenten said, sucks to be you, while whistling. Naruto responds with a nod. We also have Kakashi as our sensei, and the test I am going to take today is about teamwork, and I can already tell the other two will fail it. You already know what the test is supposed to be about, Tenten said, blinking. That isn't possible. Most people don't realize it until the backup test. Well, I was trained fairly well, Naruto said with a smile. He paused and glanced up at the roof above them, saying, isn't that right, Lee? He saw Lee standing there, but instead of his typical green attire, he was dressed in black pants and a yellow shirt, and his hair was cropped to look normal but short. He then leapt down to land next to Naruto and Tenten. You're not wearing spandex, Tenten said, gaping. No, I'm not, Lee said, ignoring her gaping. Where are you two going, then? I got to take the damn bell test of Kakashi with my team, Naruto remarked. Here, Tenten asked if she could accompany me on a walk. How about you? He glanced at the clothing and said, I see you're back to the tradition. Lee grinned and replied, yeah, I figure if I am going to go back to what sensei showed us, then I might as well dress like it. Also, I was wondering, where was he laid down at? Naruto grinned sadly and remarked, I placed his body next to his wife's. I assumed it would be how he wanted it. Alpha wants you to visit him as soon as you can. Lee nods and says, well, I suppose I might as well since we're off today. CYA, my old friend, he said as he leapt to the roof, but he halted and remarked, keep him out of trouble, Tenten. Tenten said, I think you are a miracle worker. After glancing in his direction, in addition to getting Lee to stop wearing spandex, talk normally, and get a haircut that is appropriate, you also got him to continue a conversation without once using the term youth. No, that's just the real Lee, Naruto said as he began to walk once more. He's simply never had a reason to be himself, he said, quickening his pace to get ahead of her. He had to jog a little to catch Tenten as he was about to stop when he sped up. They were getting close to the Memorial Stone training ground when she finally caught up to him. Tenten sighed and said, I guess I should leave. You don't have to, Naruto said. You could applaud me and wish me luck since Kakashi is in the tree above the two fools. Tenten chuckles and remarks, you're quite conceited or something. You think I like you? Naruto replied, well, you have been spending a lot of time following me and you are wearing my coat. Naruto laughed and remarked, just kidding, but I don't mind you staying. As Tenten flushed and punched him in the arm, it won't take long, and I can take you out to lunch after this since I'm free. Tenten followed him onto the field, grinning and responding, sure. Sakura yelled, you're late, as she got to her feet. Well, the hero always arrives at the last minute, so since I'm the hero and you're just a damsel in distress, I say I'm right on time, Naruto remarked. Do you not agree, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura and Sasuke are forced to look around. According to Sasuke, he's not here. Dobi. Kakashi is sitting on a tree limb when Naruto snorts and whips his arm out, cutting it with a blade of wind. He falls to the ground next to Sasuke, who is still reading his book. You know, you could have waited until I finished the page, Kakashi remarked. Who is your girlfriend, then? Her name is Tenten, and I work for both her and her father, Naruto stated. In order for her to stay while we complete this brief test, she is simply following me to make sure I don't get lost in the city. Ultimately, multiple chopsticks are more powerful than one. Don't you agree, sensei? Caused Kakashi's eye to enlarge briefly before he said, I see she is welcome to stay, but she must not obstruct the process. Is your shadow with you, by the way? No, he has been pursuing me ever since we left her store this morning, Naruto remarked. It was unclear to me whether he was a local or not. At the precise moment when the sound of metal piercing flesh is heard, Kakashi nods and vanishes in a swirl of leaves. While Naruto also leaves in a swirl of wind, everyone turns to see Kakashi holding a kunai to a man's neck while Naruto has one in each of the man's hands, preventing him from reaching the sword at his side. Who are you and what are you doing in Konoha? Kakashi asked as everyone gaped in shock. The man said, I was trying to find someone. He was about 5 feet 5 and had brown eyes and hair, which made him appear normal. While keeping the kunai close to the man's neck, Kakashi questioned, who are you trying to find? Kakashi recoiled when the man said, I am trying to find the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto narrowed his eyes and walked around to examine the man's face before noticing that the hand he had stabbed was not bleeding. Why do you want to know where that person is? He asked. According to the man, my master is looking for him with an offer. Naruto gave the man a serious look before responding, I know who you look for, but I will only answer if you tell me who your master is. According to the man, why would I tell a ranger? The man lunged forward and cut Naruto across the chest, causing him to bleed with several foot-long cuts. Naruto said, wrong answer, and flung his wrist as he had done previously when Kakashi was in the tree. But the wind blade pierced the man's chest, causing him to burst into a pile of feathers. Naruto then began to look around, examining the wound. As he looked around, trying to determine who or what that person was, Kakashi said, friends of yours. He then turned to face Naruto, who was still bleeding in the chest. Yes, and the worst kind, Naruto remarked after this test, I have to talk to the Hokage, don't look for the body. Things have gotten more complicated. He stopped looking around and sighed when he noticed the blood on his shirt. I killed him, which is why there are feathers everywhere. Can it wait till then? Kakashi inquired. He watched Naruto begin removing his shirt and blinked as he wiped the area where blood appeared to be leaking out, but the wounds had already healed and exposed uncut skin. I mean, you're injured, and the Hokage needs to know about this, he said. As he reached the bracelet on his arm, Naruto tapped a seal on it and said, Alpha, Talons in Konoha. Do a sweep for me and let me know if you detect anything. He then tapped it again and said, alright, let's get this show started. Naruto said, yeah, I know, but as you can see I heal fast and odds are he was alone, so it's nothing to worry about for the moment though. Tenten was worried about Naruto because he was cut, but after he removed his shirt and wiped it off, revealing uncut skin, she blinked and noticed what appeared to be 3 red claw marks on his back that extended from his shoulder to his lower hip on the other side. When he turned around, she saw that the wounds matched the one on his back, so he put his shirt on the ground next to the memorial stone and said, don't worry, I'm fine, he said as he turned to face Kakashi again. You killed him, what the hell is going on, and why are you acting like it's no big deal, sensei? Screamed Sakura as her brain finally caught up. He is a killer. Naruto remarked, your mother dropped you on your head a lot when you were a child, as everyone started to perspire, did she not? Sakura screams and jumps for Naruto, but a powerful wind blasts her into a tree. What the hell is going on here? Demanded Sasuke. What was meant by a Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, according to that man? Everybody is aware that Kyuubi perished in his attack on the village. Sakura replied, that's right, the Yondaime, Minato Namikaze killed it on October 10th 14 years ago, so how can you know someone who is a Jinkurite or whatever the hell he called it? Namikaze, Tenten thought, blinking. Could that be what Lee and Dad were beginning to say? Disregarding her, Naruto uttered, so, what's this test? Don't disregard me. Sasuke said, where did you obtain your power? I want answers. Just take some Midol, Naruto said. I'm getting tired of your mood swings. Now if you would, Ms. Tenten, please remain sitting over there so I can give the test, Kakashi said, letting out a sigh as he looked at the feathers blow away. Wondering who that was, he also noticed the marks, but he realized right away what they were because he had seen wounds like that himself following the Kyuubi attack. Tenten replied, sure, I want to see what a cool hip rival is all about. Kakashi said, you just had to pick one of Guy's students to work for, didn't you? As he turned pale and turned to face Tenten once more. Kakashi took out 2 bells and said, all right, as Naruto grinned. There are 2 bells, and the test is easy to succeed. You have to get the bells back from me. The person who doesn't receive a bell will be sent back to the academy and tied up without being allowed to eat. Is everyone in agreement? She blushed and everyone else started to perspire when Naruto said, that reminds me, you're a great cook, Tenten. According to Sakura, Kakashi told us not to eat baka. Sure, tell me, have you heard of looking underneath the underneath or what? Smirked Naruto. How long will 3 ravenous genins who woke up early for a customarily late Junin sensei really last? Kakashi responded, you're purposely going to ruin my fun, aren't you? Whatever do you mean sensei? Said Naruto naively. Alright, sighed Kakashi, you have until noon to pick up the bell from me. You have no chance of success if you approach me with the intention of killing. With a blink, Naruto questioned, if I kill you, do I still pass? I admit your skills might be high from dealing with whoever that was a moment ago, but I doubt you can do anything to me, Kakashi said, giving him a deadpan expression in any case. Get ready, set, go. Tenten looked at Naruto's body as he began to stretch and move after Sakura and Sasuke leapt into the woods, and she thought, no one is supposed to have a body that well developed. What the devil, where did that originate from? It's like a god or something. What word did the guy use? She shook her head and said, that's it. What is a ranger? You're a little weird in comparison to the others, Kakashi remarked. I got blood on my hands compared to the others, Naruto remarked. Are you prepared? Although he saw what Naruto claimed to be a kill, Kakashi was not prepared for such a response. He could not tell if it was a lie or not, so he nodded and assumed his own stance, waiting to see what Naruto could do. Phased out of sight, Naruto appeared in front of Kakashi, attempting a throat shot, but Kakashi dodged, jumped over the leg sweep, and leaned back from the standing one-arm leg kick. As he faked the kick, he received a cut on his chest from wind chakra on the bottom of his feet. Kakashi pulls up his Hiat, revealing his Sharingan, and leaps back, glancing at the wound and saying, okay, maybe I underestimated you. Sasuke widens his eyes in the bushes and muses, Sharingan, but how? Sakura ponders. What's that thing? Everyone blinked as Naruto got to his feet and said, okay, let's see how you handle this. He then reached into his weapon pouch and produced his flute. What is he going to do now? Tenten asks himself. A flute cannot be used as a weapon. Kakashi said, I see, genjutsu. He looks around, trying to find Naruto, but he can still hear the music coming from everywhere. He tries to dispel it with his hands in a ram seal, but it doesn't work, and he tries to bite his lip, but it doesn't work either. As the music shifts from a gentle melody to an action-packed tempo, birds made of wind suddenly begin to fly toward Kakashi, forcing him to make hand gestures and utter the words, Phoenix Fireball Jutsu. He breathes out multiple fireballs that strike the birds, setting them on fire, but instead of destroying or stopping them as he had intended, the 10 birds unite to form a single, 5-foot-tall bird that is still burning, reminding Kakashi of the fable Phoenix. As the bird strikes the location where Kakashi was before, it explodes, creating a 15-foot-wide crater. He quickly makes hand signs and sinks into the ground. After the music stops, Naruto approaches Sakura and asks, have you figured out my clues yet? Because she didn't see him coming, Sakura screams and jumps, saying, don't scare me, you idiot. What are you discussing? With a sigh, Naruto remarked, teamwork you dits. He then gave her a backslap and leapt away from her, moving in the direction of Sasuke, who had already battled Kakashi and been buried. After making a few hand gestures and landing in front of Sasuke, Naruto said, it's teamwork, Sasuke, and a tiny tornado dragged him out of the hole. We must cooperate as a team. Naruto slaps Sasuke on the back as well, and then the alarm goes off. Sasuke yells, I don't need you. After leaving in a gust of wind, Naruto shows up next to Tenten and says, they're screwed. He sits down next to her. While reading his book, Kakashi said, yes, they are, from above Naruto and Tenten. So when are you going to give Kakashi back the bells, Naruto? Tenten asked, causing Kakashi to look down with wide eyes and wonder, when did he get them? When I cut your chest, my foot moved just enough to cut the ropes holding the bells, and I gave them to both Sir Dipshit and Ditzy, Naruto said, seemingly responding to the unasked question. Well, said Kakashi, you pass. As he jumps down and puts his book away, he says, here come the other 2 idiots. Sakura, who was ogling Sasuke, remarked, I'm willing to wager that foolish Naruto blocked your path. Sasuke, that's why you didn't receive a bell, Kakashi said, adding, well, Naruto is the only one who should be a ninja. You two ought to simply give up being ninjas completely. Naruto replied, hey Kakashi, if they fail, can I transfer to an existing team or something? When he saw Naruto playing, Kakashi grinned behind his mask and remarked, yeah, I can put you on the same team as your girlfriend. Tenten told him, hey, I'm not his girlfriend. As he turned back to his students, Kakashi said, not yet. He then blocked a kunai strike from Sasuke. Ignoring Tenten's stares, he then vanished behind Sasuke and pushed his fingers up Sasuke's ass while saying, Konoha's secret taijutsu. 1000 years of death. Kakashi leaps backwards, trying to figure out how to cut off his fingers and regrow them from being contaminated with his students' sexual preferences, while Sasuke screams, "Ah, right there's the spot," as he flies into the air. When Sakura saw that Sasuke had his pants around his knees and was attempting to pull his boxers back out of his ass, she blushed and asked, "Do you need a hand?" Naruto and Tenten both started laughing. Sakura said, "Shut up, bitch," while Tenten tried not to laugh and said, "No, I think Shitstain there can handle it, Pinky. You're simply envious that you can't have him." There are certain things in this world that are given. Tenten and other women are categorized on a single page that says the following. Your fate is set if you call that person a fangirl, disparage her ninja skills, treat her like a fangirl, call her jealous from a fangirl perspective, attempt to harm her loved ones, or do anything that has even a passing connection to the aforementioned statements about fangirl tendencies, not being a professional in that field, or anything that has indirect connections to those things. You screwed. Tenten stood up and said, "You pink-haired slut, why don't you say that to my face?" After putting his book away, Kakashi takes out a scroll and opens a popcorn bucket. Kakashi blinks and says, "I want a copy of that," as Naruto takes out a scroll and opens a camcorder. With a nod, Naruto asked, "Aren't you going to save your student?" "She's not my student yet, so no," Kakashi said. "All right," Naruto shrugged, "it's not my issue." Sakura turned and said, "You heard me, Princess Leia, that hairstyle went out with the Daisy Dukes you have on." As Tenten stood in front of her, "Tell me, have you had to set up a waiting line because so many men have run through them?" The next line infuriated Naruto, who blinked and grinned as he got back up, wondering how in the world he had missed that about the Daisy Dukes. "That's it," Tenten said as she charged Sakura, who had her hands on the side of her hips. She said, "You die." When Sakura attempted to punch Tenten in the face, Tenten ducked beneath it and performed a leg sweep, which Sakura jumped over, but Tenten performed a vertical handspring, placing both feet beneath Sakura's chin and sending her flying. Naruto blinked and looked more closely than he had previously done in jest. As Sakura fell back to the ground, coughing up blood, Tenten stood on both hands, launched herself into the air, performed a somersault, and dropped a heel drop on her stomach. "That's enough," said Kakashi. As she turned to face Naruto, who was clapping, Tenten said, "Now that's what a Kanochi is. I'm impressed. I believed that you would have been weak in taijutsu and that you used weapons." Tenten replied, "With a sensei-like guy you don't have the luxury of being weak in taijutsu." "All right, Sasuke, I want you to take Sakura to the hospital." Kakashi said, "You must accompany me to see the Hokage. Naruto to begin missions. Meet here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Sakura was picked up and taken away by Sasuke. "Well, I guess lunch is postponed," Tenten said. "Yes," Naruto replied, "but how about we meet up on Hokage Mountain at around 2 this afternoon? I'll make it up to you, but don't eat a large lunch. I would like to discuss something with you." Tenten turned and began to leave, saying, "Sure, sounds fun." After waiting for her to disappear and Sasuke and Sakura had left, Naruto turned to Kakashi and said, "Well, I guess we can go, Kakashi." He then departed in a whirlwind, with Kakashi wrapped in leaves. Along with a number of other people, they both showed up at the Hokage's office. The Hokage said, "Well, Naruto, it's good to see you again, but I'm afraid this meeting is for Junins only." Kakashi responded, "Sorry Hokage-sama, but we had an intruder in the village and Naruto has information on the intruder, so I believe you should see him." "I see," the Hokage said. "Would you all mind leaving for a bit while I investigate this further? I'll give you a call back shortly." Pardon me, Hokage-sama, but could Guy stay as well?" said Naruto upon seeing Guy. "Very well," the Hokage said as Guy halted Kakashi, "Guy, and the rest of you can wait in the lobby." Naruto was covered in chakra that appeared to glow blue and white before fading, and after a few moments the door was closed and he fell to his knees, shocking everyone. He said, "I'm all right. I need a moment to flush the poison out of my system." He then slowly got up and sat down. Kakashi replied, "Naruto, why didn't you tell me that he had poison?" With everyone present, I couldn't reveal too much without causing further suspicion, Naruto remarked. Tenten could have taken her if she had left, which is another reason I wanted her to stay. "Is there any more danger to your life, Naruto?" the Hokage inquired. "No," Naruto said, "most of it is stopped by my healing powers, but some of it remained when he attacked." "Who attacked you, Naruto?" Guy inquired. Naruto sighed and remarked, "I suppose that in order for you to comprehend what I'm telling you, you and Kakashi must both be aware of my precise identity and my past whereabouts. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. As both Kakashi and the Hokage are aware, in addition to being the former Jinchuriki of Kyuubi no Kitsune, I am the son of the Yondaime Hokage." The Hokage said, "It's true, All of it, and let him continue without question until the end, as Guy's eyes widened. Naruto said, "My sensei took me out of the village shortly after the sealing," and Guy nodded. "He was the closest thing I have ever had to a father, despite the fact that he would never allow me to say so. Yes, I am aware of my birth father's identity and have even seen a recording of him in his final moments. But that is still insufficient to create a lifelong, loving memory anyway. Let's return to the matter at hand. I've been training to be a so-called Power Ranger for the last 14 years. The Rangers were like a super police force for the galaxy, and when I say galaxy, I mean it as hard as it is to believe. I have been on over 45 different planets in my life already." Kakashi's eyes widened as she recalled the man named Naruto. Naruto said, "I won't tell you much, but the Rangers were created to save the universe from evil creatures who wanted to enslave or destroy all life or both." "I thought you were just staying in his base," the Hokage remarked. "It was originally planned to, but as I mentioned earlier, the Rangers were the galaxy's police force, and when we received calls for assistance, we had to go and help people. As you were all aware, not all planets have humans as their primary species. Some have fish, lizards, and then some that resemble birds. The man we killed, Kakashi, is known as a Talon, and he is essentially a mercenary who works for a creature called Raven. Talons typically scout alone, but when they want to kill, they usually attack in groups. Their poison claws can change into anyone they kill, making it impossible to identify them unless you do two things: cut them, which will not cause them to bleed, and then agitate them, which will cause their feathers to show through the illusion they are hiding in. To kill them, you must puncture their chest with a weapon or cause force trauma." Guy responded, "What is this Talon creature doing here?" Naruto stated, "They were looking for the Kyuubi since I was taken away so long ago and the Kyuubi was removed. They have no idea where to look for it." "What exactly do they want with the Kyuubi?" inquired Kakashi. Naruto looked at the Hokage, who nodded and replied, "The truth is simple. Their boss is actually the leader of the tailed demons. He is a powerful creature called Omega. The demons are sent from planet to planet, stealing energy and storing it up to give to Omega to try and help him finish escaping from his prison. His mind is free and he can communicate with those under him, but his body is still trapped. They want the Kyuubi so they can go to the next planet with the other tailed beast or done collecting energy here before they destroy this planet," causing everyone to gasp. "When you say destroy the planet, what exactly do you mean?" the Hokage inquired. Naruto began to speak. "When Omega leaves a planet, he releases a poison into the air that kills everything on the planet. That's why there are only 2 Rangers left. They fell into a trap where Omega sacrificed around 2,000 of his minions to keep the Rangers busy while he left the planet. Within an hour all life on the planet was dead." Kakashi inquired, "Why does he do that? I mean, if he is actually as dangerous as you say, then why doesn't he just enslave everyone?" Naruto stated, "Omega originally did. From what I was told, it was on one of the planets that he held as slaves that the first Rangers came from and originally imprisoned him. He is afraid that people will arise to free themselves from him again, so he refuses to even accept slaves." The third inquired, "Naruto, if Omega knows there are Rangers on this planet, won't he just flee and release the virus on us like he did before?" Naruto laughed and replied, "It's not that simple. Omega, for all his power, has one major problem. The cell that holds his body is slowly destroying it. Every time his energy drops more than 60%, he starts losing more of his body, and without a body his mind will soon die also, so he has to have the Biju collect the energy he needs to keep alive, so he can't leave without them since it takes a lot out of him to leave a planet and go to the next planet, so he won't leave them here to die. He needs them and will wait until he gets them." Guy responded, "What is this energy that the Biju are collecting?" Naruto stated, "That is the funny thing. When they first come to a planet, they are only actually as strong as a Chunin. What everyone fucks up doing to them is using chakra against them. When Kyuubi attacked Konoha, what did everyone do?" The third individual stated, "Used their most powerful moves to try and weaken it and stall it." "Why?" Before Kakashi could respond, Naruto grabbed his arm and began to swirl blue chakra around it. Kakashi attempted to free himself, but Naruto released his hold after a few seconds and asked, "What do you feel like, Kakashi?" Naruto said, "Kakashi, mind if I use you for a demonstration for a moment?" "What the hell was that about?" Kakashi said, rubbing Naruto's arm and giving him a serious look. "It felt like you sucked out a good portion of my chakra." Naruto explained, "That is what the Biju do. Every attack that you used against Kyuubi was actually making it stronger. A side effect of me having him extracted was I got his ability to take chakra away and also heal real fast. I can turn it off and on anytime I want, but I thought an actual demonstration would best show everyone what I mean. Think of this though, how many times would I have been attacked if I stayed in this village with Kyuubi in me? How many people would have used chakra to try and kill me? I would have become nothing but a gained battery. So, in essence, we don't have to worry about dying from the virus because you got Kyuubi held prisoner," the Hokage said. silently taking in all the information. Naruto replied, "No. Remember me saying the Talon's work for Raven. Raven is Omega most trusted and loyal follower. He is powerful. If Omega would be a cage, Raven would be a Sanin. He also is the one who recruits humans to work for him. We know of 2 who work for him currently but have no idea where they are. If they can't find Kyuubi, they will eventually release a Biju or 2 to go out and get the energy. The only thing we have done so far is delay the destruction of the planet." "Where are you at compared to him, Naruto?" inquired Kakashi. "If I could go all out, I would say Sanin." Naruto fell silent for a moment before looking down and saying, "The problem is Raven is smart. Very smart. He always makes sure that every battle he is in is always in his favor. He never leaves anything to chance." "Who are the 2 you know of that work for him, Naruto?" the Hokage inquired. Looking at the Hokage, Naruto uttered 2 names that made everyone shudder: Orochimaru and Uchiha Itachi. After a few minutes of silence, the Hokage remarked, "You mentioned there were 2 rangers left. I assume the other is Lee." When Naruto nods, Guy responds, "So that is why he said he would not use what he knows." The Hokage asked, "Naruto, what are those 3 wounds on your chest and back?" After Naruto nodded, everyone's attention was drawn to the window when they heard a voice from the window say, "It's where he was attacked by Kyuubi when I was tricked into releasing him." Lee was standing there. As Naruto put it, "I was wondering when you would come in." After approaching Naruto, Lee punched him in the face and uttered the words, "Why?" Lee was stopped by Guy and Kakashi's grab, and Naruto wiped the blood from his nose before stating, "Because I did not want you to run off and avenge him." Lee was screaming, "Me avenge him? You see him as your fucking father and you dare accuse me of wanting to avenge him? What are you talking about, Lee?" the Hokage inquired. Everyone turned to stare at Naruto when Lee turned to the Hokage and said, "Sensei, Naruto here had me believe Sensei died of old age when in truth he died in an ambush." Looking at Lee, Naruto stood up and remarked, "You're right, Lee. I assume you saw the video of the battle." Lee continued, "I saw it all right. It was on Telos. You and Sensei were surrounded by around 250 Talons and Raven himself. I saw how Sensei powered down and gave you his morpher before he ordered Alpha to transport you back to the command center as he fought and was killed so you could carry on the legacy." He was looking down. "He could have returned with me, but he chose to stay, and now you and I are the last of the Rangers," Naruto said without speaking. Lee replied, "You planned this, didn't you? You planned for me to continue the legacy so you could go after Raven." Naruto replied, "No, I planned to keep you a secret until the last moment so you could come in and finish Raven off when I do face him, since he only knows about me, and if I fail to hold him off then you can continue where I left off." Lee inquired, "And what about teamwork, huh?" Sighing, Naruto replied, "There is no team, Lee. There is only you and me, and currently I am a liability because they know about me." After glancing at Lee, the Hokage inquired, "How long did you train Lee?" Lee inquired, "What do you mean, Hokage-sama?" The Hokage replied, "Well, I mean how long did it take you to train to be a ranger?" Before going wide as he realized where the Hokage was taking this, Naruto blinked and considered. Lee stated before he could respond, "The actual ranger training took a week." Kakashi questioned, "A week? How can anything of such great importance be learned in a week?" as Naruto closed his mouth. Naruto let out a sigh. "What I tell you does not leave this room." Lee has already said too much, but I suppose you need to know exactly what he means. The truth is you have to pass a test. If you pass the test, all the information on how to do the actual skills required is forcefully planted in your brain, sort of like a gained memory seal of sorts. The rest of the time in training is getting your body up to a level where you can actually use what you know. It's like the Kage Bunshin Jutsu. Imagine having 1,000 of them all learning how to do something over 1 week time and then dispel together. According to the Hokage, that would cause a person's brain to shut down. Naruto replied, "Not with the procedure we use. However, there is an extent to how much the brain can handle, which is why all rangers are always less than 20 years old when they are first selected. Any older and you would die." After the information was processed by all, Guy remarked, "Well, that is most unyouthful." The Hokage looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto, I am giving you an S-rank mission. You along with Lee are to form a team to prepare to fight these forces. As you have stated, this is too dangerous of a mission for one person alone, which is why you wanted Lee to be a secret. I want you to use your teammates to aid you." Naruto replied, "With all due respect, Hokage-sama, but you're fucking nuts. I will not allow Sasuke or Sakura into any of the secrets I or Lee hold as rangers. Sakura already proved she does not give a shit about anyone but Sasuke today, which is why she's in the hospital right now. And as for Sasuke himself, anyone with eyes can see he will take whatever power is offered to him and forget about the good of the team or the mission if it interferes with his own plan." Also, you got to understand something else. I may be a ninja of this village, but if it comes down to the village or stopping Omega, you can guess what I will do." As he looked directly into the eyes of the third Hokage. The third said, "Would you really leave this village to stop Omega?" With narrowed eyes. Naruto replied, "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few after all. Isn't that the same bullshit line my father must have said the night he stopped the Kyuubi?" While the other three people in the room were waiting to see what would happen and getting ready to move, the third person gazed at Naruto for a number of tense moments. The question was, who would do what? At last the third sighed a weary sigh. "You have your father's determination, Naruto. I can see you may not have known him like myself or Kakashi did, but whatever Tommy taught you was the same as Minato would have. I am proud of you, even if I have to officially go against the idea. I respect your determination, Kakashi. Do you still accept having Naruto on your team?" As he gazed at Kakashi. "If you had to choose between your teammates and the mission, what would you choose?" Kakashi asked, glancing at Naruto. After glancing at Kakashi, Naruto uttered the words, "My teammates. You know, I think those who follow the rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash," Kakashi said, grinning behind his mask. "I accept him, Hokage-sama." "What of you, Lee? If it came down to Konoha or Naruto, who would you choose?" The third asked, nodding and glancing at Lee. Lee stated, "With all due respect to Konoha and you, sir, but I would have to go with Naruto. I have also been off-world and I have seen what Omega has done to planets when he left before. Not even plants survive, sir, so if the choice ever had to be made, my decision would be to fight as a ranger beside Naruto." "What of you, Guy? Do you still accept Lee as your student?" The third sighed. Guy glanced at Lee and said, "Lee is my favorite student. I will not deny that, and I may feel hurt he would not choose Konoha, but I would also support his decision. Naruto and Lee both claim to see and know things none of us have ever seen. I would however like a sign of faith on both their parts showing exactly what a ranger is." Lee glanced at Naruto. Naruto sighed. "All right, but you will never tell anyone without mine or Lee's permission. These skills we have are not some simple jutsu to share or play around with. Either one of us could stand toe to toe against Kyuubi and win. That is the true strength of the power we have. That should also explain to you exactly how powerful Omega is. Lee, it's morphing time." As a sword of wind emerged, Naruto slammed his hand against the bracelet on his arm and yanked it away. Dragging both arms to opposing sides of his body, he exclaimed, "Wind Ranger power now." White armor immediately flew from the bracelet onto every part of his body. When Lee slammed his hand into the bracelet on his arm, a pair of lightning-made nunchucks pulled them to the side. He then said, "Lightning Ranger power now." And yellow armor flew onto Lee's body. This is similar to Naruto. Lee. Everyone looked where the two boys had been before they both finished morphing, and they were all in shock. Lee had two lightning bolts running on his chest with a mouse, and Naruto had a tornado on his chest with a falcon emerging from it. The lightning bolts were actually the mouse's tails. Guy replied, "So you were the one who saved Tenten, Naruto?" "Yes, Guy-sensei. I was thinking of just informing Lee about Sensei and then try to track down Orochimaru or Itachi, but when I saw Tenten was about to be hurt, I decided to intervene, so I had to come back to Konoha to deliver my message. But if you see me or Lee use these powers to hide who we are from our enemies, please refer to us as we called ourselves when we morphed. I am the Wind Ranger and Lee is the Lightning Ranger." Lee power down. As the armor vanished from both Naruto and Lee, everyone could hear him slowly reach up and undo a few clips on the side of his helmet. The third person questioned, "Why those names, Naruto?" Naruto explained, "As I told Kakashi, I have double wind affinity as my element. Normally I would have only had just one wind, but because of me becoming a ranger it automatically enhanced my first one. It's why the only jutsu I can do or wind." Lee is the same. Even though he can't use regular chakra, he can use lightning chakra. He also has a double affinity toward it as well. He never showed it to anyone because to access it he has to basically be in his ranger mode. It has its own drawback for him, but he makes up for it with his taijutsu. From what I have seen, a ranger has to be aligned to whatever is his or her primary driving force. Some rangers have had animal alignments, others were to certain planets, while others were to certain colors. Here on this world we are driven by the elements, which is why me and Lee are both elemental rangers. "What's with those bracelets?" inquired Kakashi. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and, "I suppose you won't leave well enough alone. They're basically gained storage devices. Inside of each one is the technology behind our power, weapons, armor, communicators that allow us to talk to each other, and Alpha back in the command base. It also has other functions, but I don't really feel like talking about them." After examining the gadget, the third person questioned, "What if they ended up in the wrong hands, Naruto?" Lee replied, "Not possible. At least not likely, I should say. When we put them on, they can only be taken off two ways. One is we give them to someone directly, they can't fall off, and can only be taken by someone else. If we are dead, it's part of their security. Guy questioned, who's Alpha? Smirking, Naruto continued, now that is something hard to explain. Alpha is like our dispatcher. He was created by the original scientist in order to not only protect the Rangers and our legacy but also scans for any signs of enemies. However, his scan can only work on a localized area unless Thier is a massive energy source like the Bijus. Once he locates signs of enemies or receives a message for help, he tells us where it and we go there and take care of the threat. He's also the one who is watching Kyuubi and makes sure he can't find a way to escape. Okay, I think that's enough for now, but Naruto, I would like for you to honestly create a team, your choice of who is it to join. If the threat is as dangerous as you claim, then we need to stop it. You're all dismissed, the third person said after they had sat in silence for a while. Lee departs in a lightning strike, while Naruto nods and departs in a white energy beam. Following their departure, the third replied, I want you both to keep an eye on them both. They seem to have everything in order and all, but if this threat is as big as they claim, then they will need help. Also keep Thier's secrets. Sir, Kakashi said. What about Tenten? Gazing at Kakashi, Guy questioned, what about my youthful student? Kakashi stated, Naruto has seemed to have taken a liking to her. In fact, he has a date with her later today. The third replied, leave them be. Perhaps he will recruit her as a ranger. She is a skilled ninja from what I have seen and could perhaps sway him to be more forward toward the village, but I do not want either of you to push this. Let things work out for now. The third sighed and said, all right, bring the other Junins back in, while the other two nodded. Tenten noticed Naruto standing with his back to her later that afternoon as she was approaching the Hokage monument. She also noticed that he had a bag on his back and next to him additionally, he was holding a whiteboard in his hand with a falcon flying on the back of it. Tenten replied, hello Naruto, did everything go okay with the Hokage? Naruto replied, yeah Tenten, everything's fine. Did you eat a small meal or a big one? According to Tenten, small one. Like you asked why? I got an outfit in that bag for you, just slip it on over your regular clothes and come back here. Where you're done I want you to show you something amazing, Naruto said, grinning as he turned to face her and gestured toward the bag on the ground. Tenten inquired, why'd I need those cloths to see what you want to show me? Naruto replied, it's a secret now, hurry please, I want you to be able to see it before it's too late. Tenten nods, takes the bag, and goes into the woods for a short while. He opens the bag and appears perplexed by the clothes, but he puts them on. Here. Come stand in front of me and put your feet in the footholds on the board, face away from me so I can finish hooking up the safety wires, she said as she walked back with a helmet, which Naruto was holding. He was now standing on the board. Blinking, Tenten questioned, safety wires, what is all this? Naruto replied, it's a surprise. It's actually my favorite hobby. My sensei taught it to me and I wanted to show it to you, so will you please trust me? After giving him a brief glance and letting out a sigh, Tenten turned away from Naruto. Naruto then said, put the helmet on and I will explain everything as I finish hooking the wires. He then started attaching clips to him and her, connecting them. The helmet was completely dark when Tenten put it on, but it soon became visible when she heard Naruto say, all right, this helmet is slowly using your chakra to power it. It has a radio built into it where you can talk to me and I can talk to you and our voices will be the same volume even if we are screaming now. If you look at the top of the screen you see little lines and the letter N on it that is pointing due north. Now if you turn your head you will notice that the N will move. This is to help keep your direction clear. Tenten replied, I can tell direction with the training I have went through, but why do we need helmets? Naruto replied, let me finish explaining and you will understand. Now if you look to the right side you will notice a number 0 on the side and they go up from there. Now I want you to say, set waypoint. When Tenten said, okay, set waypoint, as he pulled a cord on his chest, Naruto grinned and said, good, now say goodbye. Suddenly, a massive parachute blasted out, and the wind caught it, pulling the two teenagers backward off the mountain. Tenten screamed and began flapping her arms, her eyes closed, searching for something to cling to. All she could hear was Naruto laughing, and after a few moments, he stopped and said, open your eyes. Tenten opened her eyes slowly and saw nothing but air. When she looked around, when she screamed and looked down, Naruto responded, calm down, we're just flying. Tenten's voice was terrified as he asked, what? Naruto replied, remember where the 0 was earlier, what does it say now? Tenten said, looking, 1500. Naruto replied, correct, we are currently 1,500 feet above the ground, now look up. Tenten asked, what is that? As he slowly raised his head and noticed a white parachute. Naruto replied, it's how we are flying. This is actually a version of another hobby I learned called skydiving. Now you see my arms holding these two cables. I want you to grab them and I will help teach you how to do this. According to Tenten, I want to go down to the ground. Naruto grinned and remarked, can't, not until sunset. Tenten let out a sigh, and Naruto said, calm down. After about 5 minutes of Tenten's pouting, Naruto finally said, alright, time for the real fun. He then sent a burst of chakra to his back, and then the parachute vanished and they started to fall freely. As Naruto performed cartwheels, flips, and spins on the airboard, Tenten began to scream and he said, isn't this great, just think, pure freedom from the ground below, just like that dream you had. At this point, Tenten stopped yelling and was about to respond when she realized, hey, wait, he's right, it does feel just like that dream, that feels nice. Naruto then leveled his arms around her and rested his head on her shoulder without spinning. Tenten screamed at the unexpected shock, and Naruto scowled and remarked, show some backbone, girl, or are you a scaredy cat like Sakura? After 10 seconds or so, Naruto sent another burst of chakra back into his back, and the parachute opened up and they ceased free falling. Remember, people, I mentioned that women like Tenten are subject to certain regulations. Tenten said, show me how to do this, as her eyes darkened. Naruto grinned and used his wind control to keep them in the air for the next half hour, essentially flying over Konoha village. Following that, Naruto replied, well, you got it down, you can control the board, free falling, speed control, direction control, and the parachute all with no problem or help from me. Now it's time for your final lesson. Tenten inquired, what is that? With a sly smile, Naruto said, solo. He then sent chakra to the board, and a second board with a cage bunshin on it appeared next to them after a brief replacement. Naruto was on the board, free falling, leaving Tenten alone with a cage bunshin, who vanished in smoke while she was in control of the parachute that was now fastened to her back. Without a parachute, Naruto suddenly materialized next to her, slapped her ass, and said, tag, you're it? He then free falling away from her, saying, send chakra to your back to cancel the chute and do it Aegean to unseal it. She sealed the parachute and free fell after him. After Tenten's eyes grew enraged, Tenten attempted to approach Naruto during their battle, but Naruto outwitted her. Tenten, check your height, said Naruto with a sly smile. Tenten's eyes widened as she realized she had less than 1,000 feet left. She sent a chakra burst to her back, pulling out the parachute, but it suddenly burst and slowed her speed. Naruto was now behind her again, with the chute on his back, but he sealed it and took control of their dive. Shocking her, he then put his arms around her once more, rested his chin on her neck, and they began to descend slowly toward the ground as they landed softly on the roof of her family's shop. Tenten watched as Naruto unclipped himself from her and leapt back to avoid the punch she threw. Naruto grinned before he vanished in smoke, leaving Tenten furious on the roof as she swiftly followed him while still wearing the helmet and other protective gear. After Tenten calmed down, she returned to her family's home, shop and discovered a plate of still warm food and a dozen white roses next to her bed. She walked over after blushing and saw a card that just said, SORRY. Tenten let out a sigh as she went to wash up in the restroom, came out, and started eating. After finishing, she heard someone in the forge room as she went to the kitchen to return the dishes. She heard voices as she got closer. Her father was one, and Naruto was the other. Dustin replied, so tell me, what was this person or thing that attacked you earlier today Tenten told me about? Naruto replied, trouble. It seems I am going to have to find a new place to stay soon because I don't want to put you and Tenten at risk. Leaning against the wall, Dustin remarked, we can take care of ourselves. The eyes of Naruto became darker and he replied, perhaps, but I don't want to take the chance. I will keep my promise and do the job you paid me for, but instead of staying here I will find someplace else. You're going to break her heart, Dustin sighed. When Tenten blinked, Naruto questioned, what? Dustin replied, I seen the way you both have been acting since you arrived. She's happier than she has been since her mother died, and you seem to be finally changing, being around people again. So tell me, what do you plan to do? Then he said, I don't know, I don't understand what it is I am feeling around her. I mean, I was trained to keep secrets, but I keep finding myself letting her through my defenses. I think being away from her can help me figure out how to keep her out. You may be a good fighter, but when it comes to women, you don't realize that it's not about keeping them out, it's about keeping them in. Put them in your heart and hold them there. Never let them leave and you will be fine. Then you won't have to worry about defense because they will become your defense, Dustin said, slapping Naruto upside the head before leaving the room, ignoring Tenten as he passed. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, Naruto muttered after giving it some thought. I want to, but if I do she will be put in danger because of me. But sometimes the needs of the few are greater than the needs of the many, Tenten thought as she turned to leave. When Tenten woke up the following day, she went to Naruto's room and knocked. The room was spotless when she opened the door after waiting for a few moments without a response. but Naruto was nowhere to be seen. She hurried downstairs to find Dustin drinking coffee. He put down his coffee and glanced at the newspaper, saying, "He's gone, he's already done his work for the day but left before sunrise." Tenten made the question, "Where did he go?" Dustin never looked up as he asked, "Why?" As Tenten put it, "I want to talk to him." Dustin sighed and replied, "I don't know, he's untamed like the wind." Ironic, really, if you think about it. I wonder if anyone ever will tame him. By the way, don't you have a team meeting today? Tenten let out a sigh, picked up her breakfast that her father had prepared, and ate it before getting ready to leave. After she left, Dustin smirked to himself and thought, "Naruto, you have a lot to learn about women. You basically just signed your own bounty from Tenten and she will never let it go. She is going to hunt you down. Oh well, wonder what their kids might look like." Tenten saw Lee meditating when she arrived at her team's training ground, and she started to perspire before realizing that, wait, he might know. "Hey Lee," she said, "you wouldn't know where Naruto is, would you?" With his eyes still closed, Lee said, "Yes, but I'm not telling, sorry." With her arms crossed, Tenten uttered the words, "Why not?" "According to Lee, he asked me not to, but you're my teammate," Tenten remarked. Lee looked at her and smirked as he said, "And he's my friend. I'm sorry, ask his team." As she fled, Tenten's eyes widened with comprehension and she said, "Thanks Lee." Shortly after, Guy showed up and inquired, "Where are your young teammates, Lee?" Lee stated, "Neji said he had to escort Hanabi to the academy, so he would be a few moments late and Tenten is dealing with hormones." "Lee," Guy said, shedding a tear, "you should not talk about your teammates' bodily functions like that." As he got up and leapt from tree-kicking limbs off the side of two trees all the way up both trees, Lee remarked, "I know Guy-sensei, but I was speaking the truth. Well, I guess I can warm up before others get here." Guy replied, "Very good Lee, now pick up the limbs you broke and put them in the sand pit so I can get rid of them. Always keep the place clean and youthful." He vanished and then reappeared a moment later after all the limbs had moved, and Lee said, "I know sensei." "How are you so fast, Lee?" Guy inquired after glancing at Lee. Lee wrapped his armband in tape and said, "I need to get used to using it again, so I am using that to help me, so that way when I finally take my weights off I will be faster." Neji suddenly approached and remarked, "Speed won't matter if you are fated to lose." Neji asked, "Where's Tenten?" and Lee ignored him. Guy replied, "Tenten is having her youthfulness today, so she will meet up with us later. Let's go to the Hokage Tower to get our missions." After leaving Lee, Tenten hurried to the Team 7 training area, where she spotted the team sitting on a bridge. She rushed up to them and asked, "Why?" as she came to a stop in front of Naruto. "It's personal, Tenten," said Naruto. At that moment, Kakashi showed up, and Naruto remarked, "You're early." Kakashi replied, "Well, someone blew up my apartment this morning, so I had no choice but to show up early. You wouldn't know who would do it." Naruto replied, "No, besides it wasn't exactly that bad. I mean, it was only green spandex." Kakashi responded, "Do you have any idea how much mental trauma I went through waking up with all my walls being covered with that? Where the hell did you get that much anyways?" With a smile, Naruto said, "Lee, right, so are you joining our team, Tenten?" Kakashi slapped his head. Tenten replied, "No, I just came to find out something from Naruto, so are you going to tell me?" While grinning, Naruto remarked, "Mission time, right, Kakashi-sensei?" After receiving a nod from Kakashi, Naruto stood up, gave Tenten a slap on the ass, and said, "See you at the tower." Tenten vanished in a gust of wind. Tenten screamed, drew his weapons, and started to run toward the tower. As he vanished in a whirl of leaves, Kakashi sighed and remarked, "Might as well join them. Last one there has to run extra laps." Sakura tried to keep up with Sasuke as he swiftly took off. When the third saw his office door open in the Hokage Tower, he exclaimed, "Hello Guy, where is Tenten?" Everyone was shocked when Naruto suddenly materialized in a whirl of wind and yelled, "Lee, plan 45 inches." He leapt on the ceiling and held onto it with chakra on his feet. As he swiftly seized Guy and Neji and leapt over the Hokage desk behind the third, Lee went wide-eyed and exclaimed, "Damn you, Naruto." Tenten was seen holding multiple kunais in a rage as the door suddenly flew off its hinges after the third person asked, "What's going on her?" When she turned to see her teammates following the Hokage, Naruto released his grip on the ceiling he was holding and halted with his face directly in front of Tenten, causing her to scream as she fell backward onto her butt. Naruto replied, "Why is it every time you get in my face your ass starts hurting?" Tenten snarled and hurled a kunai at Naruto, who caught it and placed it in his weapons pouch, saying, "Thanks, I was running low." At that moment, Kakashi showed up. "Okay, that's enough," the third sighed, adding, "Where is the rest of your team?" Kakashi. Sakura was holding her chest while gasping for air a few moments after Sasuke ran in, breathing a little heavily. After he fluttered and landed on his feet, Naruto assisted Tenten in standing up. Tenten then swung at him and struck his face, causing him to rise in a cloud of smoke and sending Sakura flying backwards as Naruto materialized where Sakura had been just a moment earlier. Kakashi responded, "Do you have to be so hard on my female student Tenten?" Sakura stood up with her nose in her hand, and Naruto approached her, saying, "Move your hands or I will break them." Sakura hurried them away in terror, and Naruto grabbed her nose and twisted it. Everyone heard bones snap, and Naruto's hand briefly glowed before he turned to leave, saying, "Fear, all better." Sakura struck Sasuke instead of him when she attempted to strike him in the back of the head while shaking his head. Naruto remarked from where Sasuke was, "Was that necessary, Sakura? I mean, we all know you want him on his back, but to actually try to kill him, to do it, for shame, for shame." With a sigh, the third said, "That's enough, everybody." Naruto replied, "Hey old man, got any high C rank or low B rank missions?" The third member replied, "Yes, but you just graduated from the academy, Naruto. Your team is not ready for that high of missions." Naruto replied, "Hear me out a moment, sir. I was just thinking it would be a good learning experience for my teammates to see what a real team is like by having a joint mission with Team Guy here." "You just don't want any D rank missions, do you?" Kakashi asked, perspiring. As Naruto put it, "Do you, Inu?" Kakashi paused to reflect before responding, "I agree with him, sir. It would be a good learning experience for my team." The third person questioned, "Do you object, Guy?" Guy replied, "No sir, a chance to show my youthful rival exactly how high my flames of youth burn would be greatly appreciated." The third replied, "Very well, I have a B rank mission. We received word that a rank missing Nin Aoi Rokusho has been spotted near the border of Rain and has been raiding a few of the smaller villages in the area with a group of bandits. You are to go and eliminate the bandits, and if the opportunity presents itself, him also, and recover the legendary Raijin which he stole. It has a 1-month time limit. You can leave as soon as you're ready." Dismissed. Naruto replied, "Aoi Rakusho, do you have an updated bingo book? Hokage-sama, the last one I had is about a year old." Seems he was a chunin when he left but now has moved on to being a junin skill level. If you were to go into Rain Country, are we allowed to chase?" The third asked, reaching into his desk, taking one out, and throwing it to Naruto, who caught it and flipped until he found the page with Aoi on it. According to the third, only if he is already wounded. Gazing at Guy and Kakashi, Naruto nods and asks, "Which gate and when?" When Guy turned to face Kakashi, Kakashi remarked, "South gate, 1 hour." Naruto nods before vanishing in a gust of wind. "That's coming out of your pay, Sasuke," the third person said as Sasuke growled and punched a hole in the wall. "Whatever," Sasuke said, heading out to prepare. After everyone had left, the third person asked, "So what is the real reason you wanted a high-rank mission, Naruto?" After emerging from the flag behind the third in a puff of smoke, Naruto remarked, "I see you were the only one who actually detected my real switch. Anyways, I decided to listen to your request about making a team, and I also had some really good advice from someone last night. I don't know if who I have in mind will work or not, so I want a chance to see her in actual combat." "Tenten, right?" said the third. Naruto smiles and responds, "Yeah. I talked it over with Lee this morning and he agrees that she might be a good ranger. He says she's good. I already been testing her anger and that's something that will have to be worked on, but so far I am leading toward letting her join. However, if she does, I would like to request something from you, sir." According to the third, and that would be, Naruto stated, "If she does, I would like to have Team Guy and my team join together under Kakashi and Guy. Kakashi told me already the council was pushing our team to pass because of Sasuke, so if you need something to get it approved, just say it's a good chance to help Sasuke improve his taijutsu, blow the smoke up their asses, so to speak. We will see. I will think it over. Is there any other arguments you have to be useful to approve this?" the third snorted. Naruto replied, "Well, if things came down and Lee, myself and Tenten, if she passes, had to leave the village to take care of some of Omega threats, then at least you would not have to worry about the extra paperwork and headache trying to reconfigure the teams." The third replied, "All right. Good point. Well, your teams should be waiting for you, and depending on how your test goes, if I will allow it." After nodding, Naruto departed in a gust of wind. The others were already at the gate when Naruto arrived, and Kakashi asked, "What took you?" Naruto stated, "I wanted to get on the road of life, but I don't have a girlfriend to show me the landmarks. Perhaps someday. What's up, Spanky?" "Okay, Kakashi-sensei. Guy-sensei, what is the travel order and how fast do we want to get to this town?" Naruto said in a commanding voice as Tenten turned red and swung at him. Naruto laughed before he blew everyone over with a powerful wind. Kakashi responded, Guy has agreed to let me take lead on this mission, being the senior of the two of us. Naruto, how are your detection skills? Average, said Naruto as Kakashi stated. Right, Hyuga, I want you in the back. Naruto in the front. Tenten, Sakura, I want you both next to Guy in the center. Lee and Sasuke, you both follow Naruto, and I want you to stop right away. If he stops or signals something is wrong, I will take guard by the Hyuga in the back. According to Neji, my name is Neji. All right, said Kakashi, you know your name anyway, let's leave. Naruto will lead the way. With a smile, Naruto said, really? Lee went pale and exclaimed, oh god. Kakashi responded, remember to keep it safe for our slowest member. All right, said Naruto, scowling, slow enough for dimweed and dipshit. He made 5 cage bunshions and nodded before they took off, leaving a trail of dust behind them. This is going to take forever, he said, and Kakashi whistled and said, damn. Grinning, Naruto climbed into the trees and made his way to Suna. After they had been traveling for about 5 minutes, Kakashi said, you're going in the wrong direction. Naruto replied, no, I got info a storm is coming in from the north with really bad winds, rain, and hail, so I decided to sweep south of it while heading there. How accurate is your info? Inquired Kakashi when Naruto threw something small and metal into the air. He said, catch Kakashi. Kakashi couldn't see what he was doing, so he looked at it and asked, what is this? That's a personal data assistant, Kakashi, Naruto remarked. Our current location is represented by the white dot on the screen. A map of the land is shown in gray, and the slowly moving red indicates the current weather. The information is about 2 minutes old. Whistling, Kakashi remarked, damn, this could come in handy. Naruto raised his hand and said, yeah, now toss back. Sasuke chose to try to grab it by leaping to intercept it after Kakashi nods and tosses it in Naruto's direction. 21 Lee, said Naruto. Sasuke landed on a branch, but the limb broke beneath him, and Lee vanished and then reappeared a second later holding the PDA. Nobody likes a thief, Sasuke, Naruto said. Pausing, Lee gave Naruto his PDA back and said, that's why no one likes your clan. Naruto said, shit, after glancing at it, that's not good. Except for Sakura, who leapt down to see how Sasuke was doing. Everyone's eyes were on Naruto. Asking, what's wrong? Naruto stated, looks like my idea of going around the south end of the storm was a good idea, but the area where we are supposed to be heading on is getting slammed by it right now. Sakura replied, why the hell is that important, Naruto, and why is no one helping Sasuke-kun? Sighing, Naruto remarked, you understand right, Kakashi? Yeah, it means our task just got harder, Kakashi said, nodding. If we don't want the bandits to know we're there, we can't use the main road or tree branches to get around. That indicates that we had to add roughly 3 days to our journey time due to the mud. With a nod, Naruto asked, Neji, Tenten, how fast are you guys? Guy stated, they can go 15 miles in 2 hours, okay. Kakashi-sensei, do you have any radios or other short-range devices? Naruto asked, nodding. With a slow nod, Kakashi asked, what about you, Guy, do you also? All Junin's senseis have them for their team training. Why? Guy asked, nodding. Good, said Naruto, can they be on the same channel? Yes. Kakashi replied. Why, Naruto? Naruto declared, with my cage bunshions, I can carry Sakura and Sasuke at the same speed as Neji and Tenten. If we put our best foot forward, we could enter the area in roughly 36 hours. Since the storm appears to extend all the way to the elemental country's mountain range, that would give us an opportunity to use it to conceal our arrival. That's my idea. Anyway, I would be more than happy to listen to anyone else's thoughts. It seems like the best idea, Kakashi scowled, adding, but I'll take the point then. With Neji by my side, Tenten will bring up your rear, and Naruto will use his cage bunshin to form a diamond formation in the middle. Guy and Lee will come last. Is everyone in agreement? Sasuke declared, I am not being carried. A senbon needle in Sakura's neck silenced her when she said, yeah, why does the idiot there? Naruto then said, thanks Tenten. He had made a cage bunshin and had it pick up Sakura and another knock Sasuke unconscious before picking him up as well. After Kakashi nods, the group departs. A few hours later, Sakura woke up, soaked from the rain, and when she looked, she saw that she was on Naruto's back and that the trees were moving quickly. When she turned to see Sasuke unconscious on another Naruto back, Tenten quickly covered Sakura's mouth with a gag and muttered, no noise. We are in enemy territory right now. We could all be killed by any noise. Recognize. Sakura nods as Tenten takes off the gag and says softly once more, by the way, you're on a clone, so try not to move if you break it and fall because you'll probably die with a few stops. We have been on the road for almost 3 days. Sakura's eyes widened, and the dying threat made her freeze. Hearing it all, the clone grinned. About 20 minutes later, Sasuke woke up and punched Naruto in the head, sending him flying into the smoke unaware that it was a clone. Sasuke fell, slamming into a tree branch at about 8 miles per hour. When he started to scream, everyone stopped, and Naruto swiftly knocked him unconscious, saying, "Damn idiot. Why was it necessary for him to do it now? On the way here, I only managed to knock him out 3 times. How the hell did he become the Rookie of the Year?" asked Kakashi, shaking his head. By now, he ought to have realized that a clone was carrying him. "Well, thanks to Sir Emo here, we may have been discovered," Naruto sighed. Naruto claimed, "Well, at least we don't have to actually look for this dickhead now," as he swiftly threw a kunai back from where it had come, impaling it in a merc's head. "How exactly did you lead us right to where they were camped?" Kakashi asked, perspiring. Kakashi widened his eyes and remarked, "That was cheating, Naruto," as Naruto grinned and threw his PDA back to him. He was on some sort of video surveillance. "Additionally, it saved us headaches, money, and time," Naruto stated. "In any case, is there anyone who counts over 50? Guy replied, "I got 33, where are the other 17? At 10 a.m., Tenten stated, "I got 41 counting the 9 holed in the small camo tent." "I see 48, where are the other 2? Neji asked, pulling up his headband. Kakashi remarked, "Underground looks like we got a couple of Iwa nins in with the mercs." Lee replied, "Hey Naruto, first 1 to 25 buys the others dinner." With a smile, Naruto said, "Deal." Several men let out agonized screams as they fell to the ground, either dead or unable to fight, while Naruto and Lee vanished in hazes of yellow and white. "Hell no," Tenten responded as she began firing weapons at men, killing those who were injured and removing others before drawing 2 kunais and engaging in combat with some mercs. Kakashi started making hand seals and hurled multiple fireballs at a few men before he had to dodge. Neji sealed off multiple chakra points in 3 men while in a Juken stance. Holding the sleeping Sasuke in her arms, Sakura screamed as a man slowly rose from the ground in front of her. In front of her, Tenten swiftly unlocked a sword and assumed a fighting stance. With his back to Tenten, Naruto, who had just killed Merc 12 in midair, backflipped and landed behind her, saying, "You got another one coming from underground also." Tenten said, "Any plan?" With a nod, Naruto replied, "Yeah, remember how I showed you my wind skills blocking weapons?" Tenten responded, "Yeah, why? Close your eyes and grip your sword tightly, pointing it in front of you. I'll take care of the rest," Naruto said. Tenten nods and shuts her eyes, but then she suddenly feels very nauseous and lightheaded, and she drops to her knees before opening her eyes. She gasped when she realized that both of the Iwa nins had been cut into 30 pieces, and she started to throw up along with Sakura when Naruto appeared in front of her, holding a blade of wind in front of a blade of lightning. When Tenten saw that their target was holding the legendary Raijin and that Naruto was fending it off with her sword while the wind surrounded them, she gasped and backed away. "Well, kid, you have some skills to block my attack, but they aren't worth anything against me. Aoi said I possess Hokage's power." Aoi was forced to jump backwards or fall on his back after Naruto narrowed his eyes and slipped his foot under him, causing him to trip. Lee then appeared behind him, kicked him in midair, and sent him flying back toward Naruto, who, just like in Tenten's shop, began swinging the Tenten sword while encircled by a blade of wind in a figure 8. After receiving a surprise kick to the back, Aoi grunted and readied the Raijin to cut through Naruto when he saw himself flying back toward him. Aoi screamed because his hand was severed, but he was still holding the blade, and the sword was useless without any chakra to feed it. The Raijin's aim was accurate, and they missed the Naruto blade that was approaching to block it on the kata Naruto was performing and was just starting to touch Naruto's skin when the blade vanished. As he approached Aoi slowly, Naruto grinned and remarked, "You know, our orders were to kill you, but I think I know someone who would like you alive." Aoi was holding his bleeding stump. Kakashi said, "Naruto, our orders were to kill him, he's a missing nin," as he landed next to Naruto. "Yes and no, Kakashi, take a look at his headband," Naruto said. "Now what do you think Ibiki could get from Aoi here about why Rain and Iwa are working together, especially considering it was Aoi who gave Ibiki his scars?" asked Naruto after Kakashi noticed a Rain headband. After widening his eyes, Kakashi questioned, "How do you know about that, Naruto?" While stopping in front of the terrified Aoi who had positioned himself against a tree, Naruto threw him the bingo book he had received from the Hokage and remarked, "Ibiki placed a bounty personally on him. I did some research and found out why. According to Aoi, you will never take me alive." Neji gasped from the tree limb he was on and asked, "How are you doing that?" as Naruto grabbed Aoi by the neck and chakra materialized around his hand. As he flung the now slumbering Aoi to the ground, Naruto uttered the words, "New, possible bloodline." Then he tore off Aoi's headband, wrapped it tightly enough to stop the blood from flowing, and asked, "How many Lee?" Lee showed up next to Naruto and uttered the number, 24. As Naruto put it, "Then no winner." "Agreed," Lee said with a laugh. Tenten inquired, "What did you do back then when you told me to close my eyes?" Naruto replied, "I put you in a twister of wind, and since your blade was sticking out as you spun, you became a human blender." "You monster!" screamed Sakura. She still appeared ill. "How can you all kill these people like this?" she said. "Sakura, sometimes you are forced to kill in the ninja world," Kakashi sighed. Sakura pointed to Naruto and Lee and remarked, "Not those two, they are murderers." According to Lee, "So who's carrying the harpy?" Kakashi sighed as Lee and Naruto piled all the bodies in a pile before he set them on fire. Naruto said, "She can carry herself and Sir Pukestain." He then grabbed Tenten's sword and proceeded to remove the heads of all the mercs and Iwa Nin and sealed them in a scroll. After extinguishing the ashes and using his wind to accelerate it, Naruto declared, "Silent and without a trace. This is how a ninja moves." Then he seized Aoi's body, placed it on his back, and leapt in the direction of Konoha. Sakura yelled, "Wait, what about me and Sasuke-kun?" as Lee leapt after him. Kakashi grinned behind his mask and leapt into the trees, saying, "Think of it as training." With a grunt, Sakura picked up Sasuke's body and began to slowly follow the others. Beside Kakashi, Guy inquired, "So how long do you think?" As they leapt through the trees, Kakashi glanced over his shoulder and remarked, "No more than 10 minutes. I'll get Sasuke once she leaves, and you can get her so we can have some real time." Guy nods, and Naruto says, "I say 6 minutes." Kakashi, 10 yards ahead of Kakashi. As Lee paced next to Naruto, he glanced over and said, 4. "I think 3 minutes, Tenten said. We're moving very slowly, and she's already using chakra to maintain this pace." Neji activated his bloodline and said, 1 minute. Sakura fainted from chakra exhaustion at 2 minutes into the journey, and Guy caught Sakura as Kakashi caught Sasuke in mid-fall. As the group as a whole accelerated, Naruto exclaimed, "Finally." It had only been 7 days when the team returned to Konoha, and during that time, Naruto continued to drain his Aoi chakra until only enough remained to keep him alive. Each time Sakura woke up, the group made her carry Sasuke until she passed out again, and Tenten and Kakashi used a few strategically placed pressure points to put Sasuke out. When a group of Anbu members appeared on their way to the Hokage Tower after they had passed through the gates, Kakashi said, "Dragon, tell Ibiki to meet us at the Hokage Tower, we have a present for him." After saying, "Hi," and gesturing for the squad, the dragon-faced Anbu vanished. With a frown, Naruto called out, "Lee?" This caught the boy's attention. When Lee moved to stand next to Naruto, Naruto muttered, "Go ahead and call Alpha, have him scan the village and warp my PDA to him. There are no more batteries after that. Meet us at the Hokage Tower, and ask the Hokage to get Sasuke a doctor." Lee gives a nod and dashes ahead of the group until he disappears from view. Guy inquired, "Where is Lee going?" Naruto, "I just had him go get a doctor for Sasuke." Naruto remarked, 4 of his ribs are broken." "Sasuke-kun has 4 broken ribs," screamed Sakura. "Now that you're done pretending to be asleep, you can carry yourself," Guy said, dropping her on her ass and stepping on her stomach without faltering. Naruto chuckled as Sakura gasped for air, adding, "Well, at least you used chakra to protect her when you stepped on her." Grinning, Guy remarked, "So you noticed, huh?" Tenten said, "So are you finally going to tell me where you're staying now?" As Naruto nodded. What do I get if I do tell you?" asked Naruto. According to Tenten, to live another few minutes. "At this rate I won't have to buy weapons ever again," Naruto said, nodding and grabbing a senbon that was flying toward his ass before putting it in his pocket. Naruto yelled and Tenten snarled as the senbon in his pocket exploded, causing a hole to appear in the side of his pants. Naruto replied, "Was that really necessary? If you wanted me out of my pants you didn't have to blow them off." Tenten got red before yelling and attempting to strike Naruto with a kunai, but it struck Aoi's leg instead. "Hey, don't ruin my present with kunais, that's my job," Ibiki, who was standing at the tower, said with a smile that even stopped Kakashi and Guy in their tracks. "He's all yours, but he's now a Rainin as well, and he was working with a couple of Chunin level I was," Naruto said. Dropping Aoi to the ground, "These are all the mercs' heads, along with those of the 2 nins." He handed Ibiki the scroll and sealed them all inside. So I take it you're the new kid I heard everyone talking about. Ibiki nodded. The person who shows up and essentially takes names and kicks ass. You're also the one who was spotted floating in midair and groping a girl. Everyone started to perspire when Naruto said, "Hey, it wasn't a grope, it was a slap on the ass." Tenten screamed, "Baka," and attempted to strike Naruto, but he grabbed her wrist instead, creating a miniature tornado whirlwind that made her feel lightheaded. He then dipped her back and asked, "Why do you keep trying to play with my head? You tried to blow my pants off first, and now you're trying to beat me up." He stood her back up and grinned, making her spin. "You are a dirty little girl," he said. Tenten uttered, "Naruto, screw you, I'm going to be really mean to you." With a hand beneath his chin, Naruto remarked, "Don't you mean you want me to give you my hard time?" Tenten got stung once more, but this time she recovered with a nosebleed. Kakashi took the money from Naruto's raised hand, and Naruto remarked, "So you were right, she does think pervertedly about me." As he and Aoi departed in a whirl of leaves, Ibiki chuckled. The group entered after Naruto picked up Tenten's bridal style. A doctor was present when they arrived at the Hokage office, and Lee was sitting on the windowsill. The third person noticed the blood on Tenten. Sakura was clutching her stomach, and Sasuke, who was unconscious, yelled, "Doctor, help them now." "PNS," the doctor said as he rushed to check on Tenten. He then ran to Sakura and said, "Just a bruised rib, sir." Finally, he ran to Sasuke and said, "He's going to need to get to the hospital. 4 of his ribs are broken." "Okay, take him and Sakura and get them both fixed," the third person said. Sakura follows the doctor as they leave. After the doctor nods and takes Sasuke. After they left, the third said, "Okay, what happened?" while glancing at Naruto. According to Kakashi, Sasuke wounds are self-inflicted, sir. After blinking repeatedly, the third person questioned, "How can someone break 4 of their own ribs?" Naruto stated, "We were trying to use the storm that passed through the area as cover, so I had a cage bunshin carrying Sasuke and Sakura while we traveled at high chunin speed, sir. They are not conditioned to stay up with us for very long in any case. Sasuke chose to kill my clone in mid-jump after he woke up from unconsciousness. Not realizing it was a cage bunshin, he hit the next tree branch with chunin level speed after it was destroyed, breaking his ribs and warning the enemy of our position." "Does everyone agree?" asked the third sweat drop. The third person to nod said, "What about Sakura?" Guy stated, "My arms were tired of carrying her on the way back, so I dropped her when she woke up and I did not react in time to keep from stepping on her." "Was the mission a success?" asked the third, nodding. Yeah, we captured Aoi and he is currently in Ibiki's hands getting some information about why 2 Iwa nins were paired with a rain nin using mercs to attack towns. Kakashi said the Raijin is also here, placing the tiny tube on the table. "Very well, anyone have anything else to say?" said the third. Neji responded, "If I may sir, what is PNS and why did you not ask why Tenten has blood on her?" "Perverted nose syndrome," said the third. "It occurs when the brain is overloaded with twisted ideas." Naruto grinned behind his mask and remarked, "Sounds like it's quite common." "Very," said the third. "In any case, is there anything more to share?" When no one spoke, the third person said, "Everyone but Naruto may leave." Naruto was still holding a Tenten bridal style as everyone departed, and the third person said, "So. She has captivated me, sir," Naruto remarked. "I'll be honest. Her fighting style and faith in Lee and me demonstrate sound judgment, but she gets very upset easily when someone calls her a ninja or a woman or acts perverted. Although she is learning, she reacts impulsively when I test her on those and a few other things. Her most recent attack on me caused a hole in my pants, so she is beginning to consider her options before striking to see if she can pass. I believe we might put her through the trials." "What exactly are the trials?" inquired the third. "The trials are a test of judgment, courage, strength, character, and stamina," Naruto said, placing Tenten on the couch and applying pressure to ensure she was unconscious. "I would like Lee, myself, and her to be off duty for the next month if I were to give her the trials. Since we won't be in Konoha, we won't be reachable either. She would be a ranger if she passes. If not, I'm not sure everyone who was thought deserving enough to go through the trials has always passed and joined the Rangers. I suppose we could put her in the hospital and tell her that everything she hears and sees is a delusion because she suffered a head injury." "Are there any others you see who might be qualified?" the third person asked, scowling. Naruto reflected and said, "Currently no, I have only been interacting with mostly this group and have not really seen anyone else." "So how big of a team do you need?" the third person asked, nodding. According to Naruto, a full team is usually 6, but there have been occasional teams of 3. "So when do you want to leave?" inquired the third. "The sooner the better, Naruto sighed. We could actually leave right now because she doesn't really need to know that this is a test to pass it, and it would be simpler to set up if she was asleep for it to be proven correctly. It must be as authentic as possible. Very well, but I am trusting you with both hers and Lee's safety. The third sighed. In a month, I want you back. Can you tell her father she's on a long-term mission out of town again and don't tell anyone where we actually are? Naruto asked, nodding as he picked Tenten up. After the third nod, Tenten and Naruto vanished in a white beam. Tenten moaned and clutched her head as she woke up, thinking, what happened? Oh yeah, my mind sent me images of Naruto, stupid mind. When she blinked and realized she was on an island, she thought, what the hell? The island was about 200 feet above the ocean. When she noticed a scroll bearing her name, she picked it up and read it. Hi Tenten, I see you're awake. I had my men kidnap you and bring you here to play a little game. I won't say who I am, but you'll be screaming in rage at the end of the game. I've been watching you and the Ranger for a while, and I've decided to get even with him through you because I want to rule the galaxy, but he's always thwarting my plans, so I figured that since he takes what I want, I will take what he wants. I've observed his interactions with you and decided that you would be the ideal vehicle for my retaliation. You are now on a different planet than the one you were on, and I mean a different planet. The only way you can get home is to pass my game. This planet is made up of islands that are similar to the one you were on, with the exception of one island that has a spaceship on it that will take you home. However, there is only one ship that is programmed to take whoever gets in it first to their home, and there are other people and other beings trying to leave this planet to go back to their home, and they are also looking for the ship, which may already be gone. I have given you all the equipment you will need to get to the next island, one weapon, and 3 days worth of food, but there might not be any more food on the planet, so you must be careful with it. Your ranger friend is trying to track you down on another planet while you are traveling here, and I have set up a trap for him. If he falls into it, I will bring him here and torture him until he dies, so either you fail and become a new slave on this planet, you manage to escape and I still catch the ranger and get my retribution, or both. In any case, I win. As she read this, Tenten thought, what the hell, who the hell is this guy and why wait, does he mean Naruto? And started to perspire. That's what the one man, a ranger named Naruto, said. Is this guy real? The sky is purple. What the devil? Is this real? Genjutsu. It must be a genjutsu. It's not dispelling. I suppose playing this pointless game is the only way to find out. Hey, this is one of those shoots Naruto had me learn, she thought as she turned and saw a backpack, a kunai, and a scroll. She placed the kunai in her weapons pouch and the scroll in her other pouch. Since the guy watched me learn how to use something, I suppose that makes sense. When I leave here, Naruto will definitely tell me what the devil is going on. I suppose my only option is to locate this ship. Tenten found a helmet similar to the one she had previously worn, put it on, and scowled for a moment before thinking, well, I guess I have no choice but to try going island to island. A dot appeared in her helmet as she said, set waypoint. Well, there's one in the distance there, so I guess I have to try and make it there. Tenten scowled as she channeled her chakra into the chute, which burst open as the wind snatched it, pulling her from the hilltop island. After she gained some altitude, she began to slowly fly toward the next island. It took Tenten several hours to reach the next island, and she quickly discovered that she shouldn't try to show off without Naruto present. She almost died twice when she attempted a trick to kill the boredom of flying over water. After arriving at the island, she discovered a cave and went inside, realizing that a storm was approaching, so she decided not to risk going to the next island. She tensed, drew out her kunai, and looked down into the cave. After hearing something move deep within it a few hours later, seeing nothing, she took a piece of wood from the pile of wood she had gathered in anticipation of the storm, tore a piece of her shirt, wrapped it around the end of the wood, and placed it in her small fire before starting to walk toward the back of the cave to find out what had caused the noise. She was about to give up after 10 minutes of searching when she heard a movement to her right. She turned to see an elderly man who appeared weak and filthy, and she asked, "Who are you?" His words were, "SHSSH, Tenten said. "What?" I couldn't understand you, blinking. His words were, "SSJKJD Skishski, and he scowled. After scowling, Tenten remarked, "I don't understand your language." Slowly, the man reached to one ear, extracted an earring, and gave it to her. After giving it a quick glance, Tenten declared, "I can't take this." The man gestured for her to put it in her ear after shaking his hand. Tenten said, but then she noticed the man's beseeching expression. With a sigh, Tenten placed it in her ear, and the man asked, "Can you understand me now?" Tenten's eyes widened and he replied, "Yes. That earring allows you to understand any language," the man said, giving a feeble nod. "I will no longer require it because I am running out of time. Additionally, I received 2, pointing to his other ear." Then Tenten said, "Who are you?" According to the man, My name is Jason. I'm Tenten. Where are we, Jason? Tenten said. This is the slave world Hidara. Jason remarked with a frown. How are you unaware of this? I don't know. Tenten said there was a scroll stating that someone wanted to use me to exact revenge on a ranger when I woke up. With wide eyes, Jason exclaimed, a Power Ranger, some still live. Power Ranger, Tenten inquired. What is that? After glancing at her, Jason questioned, what world are you from? Tenten responded, well, we always called our planet Earth. Why? You must be from an outlined world then. Jason sighed until they encounter other races and discover the true name of their planet. Everyone, for some reason, always refers to it as Earth. That clarifies your ignorance of the Power Rangers. At that point, Tenten remarked, you must be hungry. I have some food. If you want I can offer you some if you would tell me about these Power Rangers and this planet. Jason's stomach was complaining. Jason replied, I don't want to be a bother and I can tell you what I know anyways. No, I insist. Tenten said, tell me what you know while we eat, please. Tenten noticed that Jason's leg was broken and said, here, let me help you up. Tenten assisted Jason in moving to the front of the cave after he nodded and attempted to get up. The legacy of the Power Rangers goes back thousands of years ago, Jason remarked as they settled down and ate a little while gazing out at the stormy sky. The majority of the galaxy was then subjugated by a creature of great power and evil. Omega was his given name. He enslaved the planets as he traveled from one world to the next. When the slaves rose up in rebellion, all of the scientists and warriors of the era banded together and applied their knowledge to form a team capable of defeating Omega. They were Power Rangers originals. After a while, they managed to stop him without killing him, and they put him in a sealed enclosure where he ought to have lived out the rest of his days. Tenten questioned, what do you mean should have? I don't know how he did it, but Omega managed to survive, Jason remarked. The Rangers went to stop the new evil that attempted to take over Omega's empire after he was captured, and this cycle continued until almost every galaxy had its own Rangers. They came to assist those in need and took on the role of protectors of the weak. To save complete strangers, they would sacrifice their happiness and lives. The Rangers began to simply retire and stop passing on their skills after their sacrifices eventually won out and the evil threats gradually began to fade. During this period, an evil discovered Omega's prison and attempted to free him, but was only able to liberate his mind and a small amount of his power. His body was stuck. Omega's problem was that his body was being destroyed by his prison, so he hired goons to take him from planet to planet to collect energy to keep him alive. The Rangers retaliated against him, but he had a plan, and after laying a trap more than 20 years ago, it was thought that they had all perished in the struggle. You claimed that one must have survived if you were here to exact revenge on a Ranger. I don't know. He's my age, so he couldn't be a Power Ranger, at least one when that trap happened, Tenten scowled. Perhaps he was trained by one who did survive. Jason said, may your friend be one. I pray Omegas are avoiding the same error he made previously. He is now destroying entire planets rather than enslaving people. For a Ranger to notice you, you must be unique. We just met, and I don't really know him. Tenten shrugged before he killed the man who went up in feathers. A guy called him a Ranger, which is the only reason I even know he is one. Feathers, you say? Must be a Talon, said Jason, with a contemplative expression. Since they work for Omega, they would be able to tell if he is a Ranger. Tenten inquired, so, what exactly makes a Ranger? If you ever see one, you'll know, Jason said with a smile. Their skills and armor are incredible. Tenten asked, armor? What do you mean? With a frown. Don't worry about it, Jason said. Listen, I haven't eaten in a long time, and I'm a little tired. He rested his head against the wall and said, I'm going to get some sleep. Tenten sighed as she dozed off soon after he did, with a lot of thoughts racing through her mind, but only one question. Who are you, Naruto? Tenten woke up the following day to find Jason still asleep. She sighed and got up to stretch when she noticed a note in Jason's hand. She touched him, causing him to topple over. Tenten's eyes widened as she noticed her kunai in his head. She then looked around, took the note, and started reading. Tenten, I see the scroll you had when you woke up, and I know you have to find a way to the ship so you can contact the Ranger and warn him the legacy of the Power Rangers must continue. So please don't feel sorry for me. Thank you for the meal. I decided to end my life because I could tell you would have stayed here and shared your food until I died. I appreciate you cheering up an elderly man. Jason. P.S. Go to the island south of here. I have no idea about the South Island, and you came from the east one. The island north is just a dead island, and the island west is a trap. I barely got out of it myself when I first got her. Good luck. Tenten shed a tear as she packed her belongings, took the kunai, and turned to face the man. Jason, I won't make your sacrifice go in vain. I'll caution him, she said as she departed the island. Jason sat up and grinned as he gradually transformed into a blue-skinned fishman. He touched his wrist and yelled, "Jason here. Island 1 pass." He then dove into the water and swam underwater. Tenten saw the island gradually come into view. A few hours later she noticed that it was larger than the previous island and that smoke, which appeared to be from a campfire, was coming from the island's east side. She packed her chute as soon as she arrived at the island and headed in the direction of the smoke. After about half an hour, she heard two people conversing, and as she drew nearer, she used her stealth skills to approach and saw a woman who looked like a yellow bird tied to a tree and two men who resembled bugs conversing. She listened in. "I propose that we simply murder her," the tall one said. "She has already informed us that she is unsure of the ship's location." "I propose that we enjoy ourselves with her," the shorter one said. "After all, you don't see a pureblood Era very often." With a sigh, the tall one said, "Do as you like." He spread his wings on his back and took off, saying, "I'm going to the next island." As he moved forward, the shorter one grinned and remarked, "So I guess that means I get to eat you pureblood." With a scowl, Tenten drew her kunai and hurled it at the bugman, striking him in the back of the head, but it bounced off and hit the floor instead. The bugman turned and asked, "Who goes there?" as Tenten's eyes widened. Tenten said to himself, "Shit." Tenten had to jump back as the bugman landed on the tree she was on after he shot a little higher into the air and charged in her direction. Well, what do we have here?" the man asked a female human as he attempted to strike Tenten. He said, "I haven't eaten one of you in years." Tenten ran down the tree and grabbed her kunai after dodging the blow and performing a backflip with chakra. The bugman clipped her shoulder and destroyed the pack that contained her parachute as she grabbed the kunai. Tenten rolled to the side and bit back a scream as her arm felt like it was being torn off. She said, "I don't know what you are, but I am not anyone's supper," while assuming a defensive position and holding her kunai in front of her. Smirking, the bugman remarked, "Brave words for my next meal." As the bugman charged at her once more, Tenten threw her kunai and rolled away, saying, "Stupid girl. My skin is too hard for you pitiful weapons to even scratch." "Who said I was aiming for you?" Tenten smirked as he ducked under the next pass. Just as the bugman turned and blinked, the woman who had been tied up a moment earlier punched him in the face. After wiping her beak, the woman asked, "Who are you, human?" Tenten sighed as she fell against a tree with her arm still held where she had been struck. The woman had grabbed the bugman with her beak and bit down on his neck, popping his head off. "My name is Tenten," Tenten said. "Who are you?" According to the woman, "My name is Kim." Kim questioned, "Why did you help me?" as Tenten winced and nodded. Tenten stated, "I don't like the idea of someone being hurt when they can't fight back." Tenten sighed as Kim glanced at her, saying, "Well, it looks like I'm stuck here now." "Why?" Kim inquired. Tenten replied, "My pack here had my only way to transport from island to island." Kim responded, "Why are you going from island to island? Are you a slave here or a toy like me?" "I suppose you could say I am a toy as well," Tenten scowled. Kim replied, "Then you must be trying to get to the ship." Nodding, Tenten said, "Yeah, I need to get home and warn someone about this." "Who?" Kim inquired. Says Tenten, "A ranger." "You're friends with a ranger?" Kim hissed. Tenten looked at him and replied, "Well, not exactly. We just met each other recently, but the guy who brought me here thinks we are closer than just meeting each other." "Goodbye, human," said Kim as she took off, and Tenten thought, "Great Tenten, you help her and she leaves you here to die." Tenten began searching the bugman's body after he attacked her, scowling briefly before remarking, "That's strange." She discovered the body was hollow. Tenten was leaning against a tree about an hour later when she heard a buzzing sound. She looked up to see the taller bugman hovering over her, staring at her, and she exclaimed, "Great, come to finish me off." After observing her for a while, the bugman inquired, "Where did the bird woman go?" According to Tenten, she flew away toward the west. "Why are you here, human?" the bugman asked after landing. "Trying to get off this planet and get home," Tenten uttered. After glancing at her, the bugman remarked, "You're attempting to reach the ship." Tenten gave a nod, and the bugman inquired, "Why?" After giving it some thought, Tenten declared, "I want to go home to my family. Since my partner was killed by that woman, how about partnering with me?" the bugman asked, nodding. "How can you be sure that I did not kill him?" Tenten inquired. "You're too weak a human to have killed him the way he died," the bugman remarked, laughing. "I guess you're right, but I can't get off the island. My chute was destroyed, so I am stuck here," Tenten said, biting her lip and thinking, "Don't get mad." Following a few moments of buzzing, the bugman declared, "I will carry you. We will follow the woman to the ship and escape." Tenten got up and said, "Very well." Flying into the air, the bugman took Tenten in her arms and began to fly west, following the woman's path. "So what happens when we find the woman and the ship?" Tenten scowled as they touched down on the next island. According to the bugman, "We leave." Tenten asks, "So what's your name?" with a deeper frown. The insect said, "Billy, I'm Tenten," Tenten said. Tenten questioned, "What?" As Billy laughed. "Your name means lusts in my language," Billy remarked. As soon as they touched down on the island, Tenten's eyes widened and he asked, "What now?" Billy stated, "Now you earn you transport. You search the island and if you find anything you come back and tell me. I will wait here." When it settled down, Tenten squinted and said, "Right," before heading out to search the island. Tenten was strolling on the beach of the island an hour later when she noticed someone emerging from the water. Tenten took hold of her kunai, approached the man slowly, and said, "Hello." He was a fish-like man. Tenten said, "Wait, I'm not going to hurt you," as the fisherman turned to face her and began to slowly retreat into the ocean. "Who are you?" the man asked, glancing at Tenten. According to Tenten, "My name is Tenten." After glancing at her, the man dubiously said, "I am Aqua. What are you doing here, Tenten?" Tenten uttered the words, "I am trying to find my way out of here." "Why do you wish to leave?" asked Aqua. Tenten said, scowling, "I want to go home." As he turned to go, Aqua said, "A selfish reason. Goodbye." "Wait," Tenten said. Aqua paused. "Why? You seem selfish. Why should I help you over the others? You have nothing that causes me to want to help you escape where others would be better." She sighed and said, "I need to warn a Power Ranger of a trap." Tenten scowled and considered, what could I tell him to get his help? I could tell him about Naruto, but when I mentioned that earlier the bird woman left me. Aqua turned and began to walk away after giving her a quick glance and declaring, "The Power Rangers are all dead." Tenten responded, "Wait, they're not all dead. I know at least one that is still alive." Aqua turned to face her and said, "If what you said is true, I will give you a chance. There is a radio hidden on the island north of here, and there is a clue to the location of the ship on the island south of here. I shall see if you are selfish or true." He then returned to the water. After he left, Tenten turned to head back to Billy's location. As she walked back across the island, she kept thinking, "What should I do? I could go to the south to find out where the ship is, but then I have to worry about Billy double-crossing me as well as that bird woman. But I could also go to the north and warn Naruto and hope I am right, but I don't know if I can even get a hold of him on a radio. What should I do?" Billy stood up when she returned and inquired, "Did you find any clues?" "If we find the ship, can we both escape in it?" Tenten inquired. As Billy put it, "Of course," Tenten replied. "We head north. There's supposed to be a clue on the island to where a ship is." They were in the air when Billy grabbed Tenten and said, "You better not be lying to me, human, or I will leave you for dead on the island." "I am just going on the info I gathered from some others on the island," Tenten said with a frown. "I hope they were right for your sake," Billy said. As they took off for the next island, Tenten bit her lip. Tenten scowled as they touched down on the island, thinking, "It can't be. This is the island I started on." She snatched up her helmet, put it on, and looked, realizing she was correct. "Well, where is the clue?" asked Billy in response. Tenten said, "I don't know." After slapping her, Billy took off, leaving Tenten behind. "Stupid human. There's nothing here but a single flat mountain top. You lied to me. Now I have to go back and try and find that damn woman myself." As she began to cry, Tenten held her face where she had been slapped and thought, "Stupid Tenten, you should have gone for the ship and forget Naruto." For the next 2 days, she sat there eating what she had and thinking when she heard something fall behind her. She turned and looked around, but saw no one, so she closed her eyes and lay there until she heard a beeping sound. She blinked, looked around, and heard the noise again, so she got up and began to look. After about 4 minutes, she discovered the source of the beeping sound, frowning and thinking, "That looks like that thing Lee and Naruto have on their wrist." When she picked it up and it beeped once more, she asked, "What's it doing here?" A voice said, "Come in. Can you hear me?" as she put it on her wrist and noticed a small button on the side. Tenten responded, "Yes, I can." The mechanical-sounding voice asked, "Who is this?" Then Tenten said, "My name is Tenten." After a short pause, the voice said, "Tenten from Konoha." Tenten's eyes widened, and he said, "Yes, how do you know me?" The individual said, I. Where are you, Tenten? The Rangers have been looking for you." "How do you know me?" asked Tenten. "Who are you?" According to the voice, "My name is Alpha. Alpha, I need help." Tenten said, "Someone claimed they were taking advantage of me and had a trap for Naruto after kidnapping me and taking me to a planet full of weird creatures." "What is Naruto?" Alpha inquired. Tenten became enraged and yelled, "Listen, Alpha, I am aware that Naruto is a Power Ranger, although I don't know much about this. I am aware that he is. I want to return home, but I'm stuck on this planet. Tenten heard Naruto say, Tenten, can you hear me? After a brief period of silence. Tenten exhaled in relief and replied, yes, Naruto. Listen, Tenten, I didn't want you to get involved, but it seems like one of my enemies chose to use you to reach me. Naruto said, I am aware of the planet you are on, but I am powerless to save you. Tenten began sobbing and uttering the words, why not? Listen, it's not that I don't want to, because I do, Naruto said, acknowledging the tears. But the planet you're on has a force field that keeps people from entering unless they have the security code. Although I am not sure who possesses those codes, I can offer you a chance to save yourself and leave the planet where I can save you, but you must first save yourself. Tenten said, okay, tell me what to do, after he had calmed down. Naruto nods and says, all right, I don't know how you got it, but I can tell by scanning it from here that the power coin has been taken out of the device you were using to talk. It's part of the Power Rangers' highly advanced battle armor. Alpha has located the coin. After scanning the planet, you can change into a Power Ranger and leave the planet if you can find it and put the coin into the gadget you have. How do I find this coin and how do I transform, and what exactly is a Power Ranger? Tenten asked, glancing at the gadget. After a pause, Naruto said, put the device on your arm until you pass away or give it to someone else. It will lock onto your arm and not come off. A PDA similar to the one I used on our mission will appear when you do that. It will indicate where the power coin is. Foolish Rangers. I won't let the girl escape that easily, a voice said as static filled the radio. She must defeat me if she wishes to depart from this planet. Ha 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 ha. Tenten said, Naruto, 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 can you hear me? After the radio was filled with static. She looked at the gadget for a few moments before putting it on her arm, sighing and saying, I guess I am on my own now. As she touched the PDA's on button, she noticed a small gadget emerge along with a number of food and soldier pills. Well, it looks like it's time for me to get myself off this planet. Tenten saw a map appear and scowled when she saw that it was pointing north, but it also stopped in the middle of the ocean. Either the thing's underwater or there is a very small island there. Tenten used chakra to descend the cliff, and when she reached the ocean, she attempted to walk on the water, almost falling on one foot before she managed to stop herself. She then tried walking slowly, and after a few minutes, she began running while glancing at the PDA. After taking a soldier pill, after feeling her chakra dwindling for about 20 minutes, she felt her reserves replenish and accelerated her pace in an attempt to reach her destination more quickly. She felt her reserves were running low again after another 25 minutes, but she could see that she was almost there. She took a food pill, ate it, and felt her reserves fill 1/4 of the way, and continued running until she reached the location where the PDA said the coin was. She saw a single, 2-foot wide hill that was 3 feet above the water, so she ran to it and climbed on top of it to look around, but she was unable to see the coin. She checked the PDA and saw that she was exactly on it, but she was unable to see it. She turned to see Aqua swimming in the water after hearing a voice say, Welcome, Tenten? Tenten asked, Is that you, Aqua? I see you truly meant keeping your word, Aqua said, nodding. Have you warned the ranger over the phone? According to Tenten, yes, I contacted him, Aqua asked. Then why are you here? With a nod. Tenten replied, Look, he told me he could not save me but told me about this thing on my arm and it told me to come here to find something. Holding up a gold coin, Aqua nods and says, So, you have come for this then? Tenten inquired, Is that the power coin? Yes, it is. Aqua said, It was given to me by a ranger. You claim that one brought you here, but you need to show me. I'll give it to you if you can. Aqua responded, No, you are mistaken, Tenten. If you want the power of a Power Ranger you must earn it. Tenten said, Okay, ask him. As she pressed the button, but all they heard was static. With a glance at Aqua, Tenten questioned, What do you mean? Because it is the Blue Water Ranger power coin, Aqua stated. I was entrusted with this power coin. You have to become one with the water in order to use it. It was put here for that reason. A planet with almost infinite seas. You must learn to control the water here in order to demonstrate that you are the one who deserves this power. Demonstrate your Power Ranger status to me. Look, I just want to go home, Tenten said with a frown. Being a Power Ranger doesn't matter to me. In fact, I don't even care if I run into another alien. All I want to do is return home, live my life, and become a ninja. My life has been nothing but a huge pain in the ass ever since Naruto appeared. So please give me the money and let me go. You really are selfish after all, Aqua remarked. To think that I believed you would be different and able to put other people's needs ahead of your own. Goodbye, he said as he dove under the water, leaving only a ripple where he had been just a few seconds earlier. Tenten sat down on the miniature island and screamed in exasperation, thinking, I am not selfish, I just want to go home. For the next few hours, Tenten remained there, and Jason's words, They became the guardians of the weak and came to help those who were in need. A resurfaced, she thought. Is that so different from being a ninja? They would sacrifice their own lives and happiness to save complete strangers. Sometimes I sacrifice my happiness and myself for the benefit of the village, with the exception of serving the entire galaxy. The rangers are identical. Would I agree to serve as a ranger as well? Tenten closed her eyes and tried to think of a way to control the water, thinking, well, it might be too late, but I think I want to be a ranger. Perhaps I can still prove myself worthy. She sat there listening to the waves as they moved against the pillar she was on, and she soon started to feel the currents in the water around her. She gradually felt as though she was seeing without sight as the water told her everything: a fish in the water, a water spider sitting on the water, the wind blowing across the water, the energy created by the motion of the ocean. As she continued to feel the water, she felt a large object deep underwater, which was obstructing most of the water's flow, as well as an air pocket. Whatever that thing is not natural, Tenten thought as she opened her eyes and got to her feet. I'm not sure how, but I get the impression that the metal object is calling to me. Then she jumped into the water and started swimming toward the spot where she felt it, but the light from the surface dimmed until she was unable to see what was around her. She closed her eyes, followed her gut, and swam until she reached the air pocket. When she opened her eyes, she discovered that she was in a metal room and that Aqua was sitting there. He said, "Welcome, Tenten, so tell me, why have you come?" Tenten replied, "I wish to become a Power Ranger and help those who are in need. Are you willing to accept the consequences, even if you have to leave your home and never return unless you seek death?" Aqua asked her, glancing at her. "Even if you despise the people you are attempting to save, are you prepared to cooperate in the face of the galaxy's threats? Will you sacrifice the lives of your friends and family to save the many?" Tenten said, "Yes." After giving it a serious look, "I simply work for a larger village because it's essentially the same thing I agreed to when I became a ninja." He tossed the coin on the deck and vanished in a cloud of smoke, to which Aqua replied, "Very well, let's test your will, Tenten." As Tenten climbed out of the water and grabbed the coin, a slot appeared on her arm, and she saw a slot for the coin. Tenten scowled and thought, "Cage Bunshin." She inserted the coin into the slot and screamed as her head began to pound and she fell to the ground. Tenten discovered she was still inside the metal object she had swam into when she woke up. "Wait, why am I suddenly aware that this is a Zord and what a Zord is?" Tenten asked himself. "How do I know what I know now?" she asked, surveying her surroundings. "Well, Tenten, show me you're a ranger and fight me on the surface," Aqua's voice said as she heard it come over the speakers. "It's morphin' time," Tenten said with a frown when she finished changing. She had a waterfall with a blue frog on her chest. "Water Ranger power now." She slammed her hand into the morpher on her wrist, and a bow staff emerged as blue energy covered her body before her body armor covered her. When a 60-foot-tall blue metal frog abruptly leapt out of the water and landed on the water's surface, the surface was serene and there was water everywhere you looked. Tenten said inside the frog, "Show yourself, Aqua." A green dragon emerged from the water as Tenten heard a flute playing and the water began to bubble. Tenten then noticed a person wearing Green Ranger armor standing atop the dragon and remarked, "So you're a Power Ranger, Aqua. Until you fight me, I won't say anything." Aqua said, "I won't tell you the truth until after that." With a scowl, Tenten declared, "We should not fight." As he put the flute to his mouth and started to play, the Green Ranger said, "Then die, Water Ranger." The dragon roared and raised its hands, launching them at the toad with missiles that formed on its fingers. The frog instantly leapt away, and as flames erupted from the dragon's mouth, the music kept playing. After diving beneath the water, the frog leapt out and kicked the dragon in the chest, causing it to topple over. After falling, the dragon reappeared a short while later, but this time it appeared as a man wearing dragon armor, with its tail transformed into a lance, and it attempted to stab the frog. Leaping away, the frog grabbed the lance with its tongue and dragged it away from the dragon. As he leapt off the dragon's head and landed on the neighboring island, the Green Ranger uttered the words, "Enough, Blue Ranger. Let's face each other in a fight face to face." With a frown, Tenten asked, "Why should I?" "Because you will never get your answers as to what is going on here unless you do." The Green Ranger stated the actual responses. Tenten let out a sigh and then leapt onto the island, where the Green Ranger was standing in a taijutsu stance. Tenten snatched up her bow staff and charged them. When it became clear that the Green Ranger was taking it easy on her, Tenten jumped back and yelled, "Enough! Why are you not fighting me for real?" As Green ducked under the staff and sent a sweep kick at Blue, who jumped over the sweep and punched Green in the head. The Green Ranger paused and remarked, "All right, you've shown that you are a capable fighter who is aware of the abilities granted to you. It's time for your last exam." Then Tenten said, "And what's that?" At that moment, the Bugman and the Birdwoman flew toward them, landed, and then both of them vanished in smoke. The Bugman changed into the Yellow Ranger, and the Green Ranger said, "Power down." The armor surrounding him vanished, and Tenten realized it was Jason. "What's going on here? Why was the Bugman a Power Ranger, and how are you alive?" Tenten inquired. "I saw you dead." "Your whole stay here has been nothing but a test," Jason remarked. "Your judgment, bravery, strength, character, and endurance were evaluated. This is the last test here," he said, putting his hands together and exhaling as smoke surrounded him. As Tenten's eyes widened, the Yellow Ranger's words were, "Power down." Tenten asked, "Why? Why did you both do this? Why did you kidnap me and bring me to this, with a gaping expression? "As I said," Naruto said, "the purpose of this test was to evaluate your judgment. You started deciding who you should and shouldn't tell after witnessing the Ranger's power. Courage was put to the test when you were prepared to take on an enemy you had no knowledge of in order to save the bird woman. You demonstrated your inner strength when you were prepared to go to any lengths to keep going after your chute was destroyed. It demonstrated your character to be willing to share your meager supply of food with an elderly man you didn't know and to provide him with comfort in the final hours of his life. You also demonstrated strength when you managed to complete the test, even though it occasionally felt like a suicide mission that demonstrated your endurance." Tenten asked, "What is the final test?" after considering everything she had heard. "You're taking it now," Naruto said. "Your final test is what you do here. How do you feel now that Lee and I have done this to you?" After glancing at both, Tenten remarked, "So Lee was the one who flew me around, right?" Naruto replied, "Yes, except when you were flying on your own you did that by yourself." "So you're the one who punched me in the face, Lee?" Tenten inquired. Tenten glanced at Naruto and said, "What about the guy who cut my arm? Who was that?" Lee nodded slowly. Naruto replied, "Everyone but the Bugman. Lee was me or my Cage Bunshin, so I was the one who cut your arm and destroyed the chute." Tenten agreed, adding, "And it was Lee who grabbed my ass." Turning to face Lee, Naruto remarked, "You grabbed her ass." According to Lee, "No, I didn't." When Naruto turned to face Tenten, Tenten gave him a foot in the face, and all that could be heard was laughter. Tenten appeared above Naruto as he collapsed onto his ass, placing her foot on his neck and asking, "Why don't I just kill you for doing this right now? Don't think I'm not going to turn you into a woman for my face, Lee. I'm probably a missing nin from the village now, and my father is probably worried to no end you may have broken my jaw." "Hey, we had to make it real, so the races we had to act like the races we were impersonating," Lee said, raising his hand. "What do you mean by impersonating?" Tenten inquired. "You mean they're real?" "We're real," said Naruto, who still had Tenten's foot on his neck. "All life on the planet we live on was wiped out by Omega." As she removed her foot from his neck, Tenten uttered the words, "Wait, Omega, he's real." Naruto replied, "Yes, he's real and on our home planet right now." With wide eyes, Tenten exclaimed, "Then we need to stop him." According to Lee, "What's this we stuff? We're Power Rangers, we have to stop him and save our planet," Tenten said, glancing at him. When Naruto got to his feet, he exclaimed, "Then what?" Tenten questioned, "What do you mean? Are you willing to help the next planet in need or to stop the next evil that threatens the galaxy? Or are you just interested in being a Power Ranger until our planet is saved?" Asked Naruto, "For what might be the rest of our lives, are you prepared to leave our world?" He crossed his arms and asked, "Are you willing to keep the secrets you have learned until you die or until you pass the legacy on to the next generation?" After giving him a serious look, Tenten said, "I have a question. How did you become a ranger? You told me that all rangers perished in a trap. Naruto, tell me about yourself, how you became one, and how Lee became one." With a sigh, Naruto took a seat and remarked, "Our village was being attacked by Kyuubi no Kitsune on the day I was born. My birth father, the Yondaime, sacrificed himself in order to instill the Kyuubi in me. A few hours later, Tommy, the last surviving Power Ranger, who we call Sensei and who trained Lee and me and whom I believe to be my real father, came to my rescue and spared me from a life of suffering." With wide eyes, Tenten uttered, "So you have the demon Kyuubi within you?" "No," Lee said. "It's not a demon." Terrified, Tenten asked, "What do you mean?" "The Kyuubi and the other tailed beast are not demons. According to Naruto, they are monsters who follow Omega's orders and collect the energy Omega needs to survive before he obliterates the planet's chakra on the way back. You recall how I kept taking that nin's energy? I inherited that skill from the Kyuubi." "So, can the Kyuubi escape from you?" Tenten inquired. Lee stated, "You saw the scar on Naruto's chest and back." With a dejected expression, Naruto said, "Lee, don't." Tenten nods, and Lee states, "Sensei took the Kyuubi and placed it in a prison on the day Naruto was taken from the village. I was tricked by the Kyuubi into releasing it from its prison during my ranger training. And it almost killed the three of us. I would have perished if Naruto hadn't saved me. Fortunately, the Kyuubi was returned to its prison prior to its escape. But those scars are evidence of my stupidity. I blame myself for it, so he doesn't want me to speak up. Enough, Lee, Naruto said. Tenten, pay attention. The Kyuubi has been resolved for the time being. But the question still stands. Are you prepared to give up everything in order to become a Power Ranger? I have to ask that question. Lee and I both agreed to give you the option and the chance to try. So you have to make a decision now. Do you agree? Tenten said. After glancing at them, Tenten gave them a look and said, no. Tenten, Naruto said, can you hear me? Yes, Tenten replied, I can hear you. Tenten, Naruto said, can you hear me? Tenten appeared perplexed, but before she knew it, she had a neck ache, her surroundings became hazy, and she dozed off. Tenten woke up in the Konoha hospital and said, hey, can you hear me, Tenten? As she stirred and saw Naruto holding her hand. Tenten asked, blinking, what happened? You don't remember, said Naruto. Tenten looked perplexed and said, no, what, on our second mission, we were attacked, and you were injured. Naruto stated you then had a fever and passed out. We failed the mission and hurried you back as quickly as we could, but it doesn't matter as long as you're still alive. But wait, what about the Power Rangers? Tenten asked. Naruto looked perplexed and said, the what? Tenten replied, the Power Rangers, you know, you, me and Lee were on another planet and you pretended to be aliens that Omega had killed and… Oh Tenten, Naruto said, squeezing her hand, the doctor said you might see things with your fever but I didn't think you would believe them. But it was real, it was not some simple illusions or anything, Tenten said, pausing his speech. Similar to this wound on my arm I received it from you, who was accused of being a bugman. No, Tenten, you were slashed by a sword from the missing nin that attacked us, Naruto said. Your face was bruised where you struck a tree. In an attempt to make sense of it, Tenten rubbed her face, winced, and uttered the words, but… Don't worry, Tenten. It's my fault, Naruto said. I got separated from you and the others, but I should have arrived sooner to watch your back. Tenten responded, wait, your name is Naruto Namikaze, son of the Yondaime. I'm sorry, Naruto said. I don't know who my father is, he said, squeezing her hand. It's Uzumaki. Tenten, my mother's name was Kushina Uzumaki. Trying to think of something, Tenten looked at her arm and said, but this thing, it's a morpher. Naruto stated, I gave you that Tenten as a radio so you could communicate with Lee and me. It's attached to your arm by chakra, so I can't remove it until you do. Can you please give it back to me? But it can't be all a dream, can it? Tenten thought as he looked at it. She inquired, wait, the guy who attacked you called you a ranger. If it's not a Power Ranger, then what is a ranger? Oh, Naruto said, I am an archer with a long range. I had to learn how to attack from a distance during my training, and he must have noticed me somehow and understood that a ranger is someone who does that. I guess you're right, but I could have sworn that. Wait, what about Alpha? Tenten sighed, her head spinning. Naruto replied, that was the name of the contact we were meeting on the mission we were on. Tenten inquired, what was the mission? Naruto stated, we were supposed to retrieve some documents from Alpha, but we were attacked before we made it to the meeting place. I guess it was all a dream, Tenten said, closing her eyes and letting out a sigh. She took the metal bracelet off her arm and gave it to Naruto, saying, here, I suppose this belongs to you. I'm sorry, Naruto said. I hope you're feeling better, he said, putting the bracelet in his pocket. I guess my heads are all confused right now, Tenten remarked. I suppose all I need is some sleep. Then I guess I better get going, Naruto said, nodding. Tenten, be careful and I'll see you soon. Wait, how long has it been? Tenten asked, standing outside the Hokage tower after handing the prisoner over to that Ibiki guy. Was the last thing I remembered before everything went funny. After scowling, Naruto remarked, it's been 3 weeks, Tenten. Tenten tried to clear her mind and said, 3 weeks. You've been in here ever since we returned 2 days ago, Naruto said, nodding. I informed your father that we had returned and that you were here. He has been coming to see how you were doing, but he is currently at the shop. Tenten sighed and remarked, perhaps I'll remember when I wake up again. Many thanks, Naruto. Hey, please don't tell anyone my last name, Naruto said, nodding. I don't want my mom's many enemies to target me because of something my parents did. Tenten said, nodding, all right Naruto, see you. As he left the room, Naruto said, see you Tenten. He asked, so how did it go? As he passed Lee leaning against the wall in the hallway. She thinks it was all a dream, Naruto remarked. All right, I got the morpher back. All we have to do is prevent her from witnessing your transformation. Lee replied, yeah, at least you used the dragon coin when you showed her, so you can still keep the secret. Yes, Naruto said, nodding, Well, let's go tell the Hokage. A lightning strike and a wind swirl followed their departure. When a bolt and wind appeared in his office while the third was working on paperwork, he saw Lee and Naruto and exclaimed, "So tell me, how did everything go?" "Tenten thinks that we were on a mission, and she was injured, and everything that happened was a dream," Naruto remarked. "I had assumed she would accompany us, but she declined, so it was up to her decision. That's our only option." Sighing, the third remarked, "Well, I had hoped she would agree, but we can't always get what we want." With a nod, Naruto uttered, "So what now?" The third individual replied, "Well, Tenten will be cleared for duty tomorrow, so you can begin mission the day after tomorrow." Lee replied, "I don't like lying to her, but it has to be done." "Well, if that is all you both dismissed," the third sighed. Lee follows Naruto as he leaves. Naruto saw Guy approaching the tower once they were outside, and Lee greeted him with, "Hello, Guy-sensei." Guy responded, "Hello, Lee. How is my youthful student today?" Lee replied, "Fine, we just came from updating the Hokage on Tenten condition." "How did she get hurt?" Guy inquired. "An ambush," said Naruto. "It was supposed to be a straightforward C-rank retrieval, but we got separated when we unintentionally encountered a group of missing nins. Tenten was surprised by another one that we failed to detect. After we had injured 4 of them, we were fortunate that the leader gave them the order to retreat." "Did you recognize them?" Guy inquired. "No, I didn't recognize them from the bingo book, so either they were made to look like them or they just recently became missing nins," Naruto said. "Lee, did you not recognize the symbol?" "No," Lee said. "I apologize." "Very well, thank you for saving my young student," Guy said. "I only wish a Junin had been sent with you by the Hokage." "That was my fault, Guy," Naruto said, adding that the third person believed my training had made me too advanced for the others. "I would have been given a test for a potential promotion if we had finished this mission. It is my responsibility as the team leader to protect my team. I apologize, Guy-sensei." "Don't worry, Naruto," Guy said. "I comprehend the Hokage's choice given your performance on our first mission. I must admit that I thought you were too advanced for a genin, so I wasn't shocked when he gave you the opportunity to advance, although I regret that your team was ambushed. Such events do occur. The fact that every member of your team survived speaks volumes about you." "Yes, it does, but we need to go, Guy-sensei," Lee said. "I'll see you tomorrow." With a nod, Guy said, "Good luck to you both." Naruto sighed as they both departed, saying, "Well, I'm going to the command center to sleep. Lee, if things heat up, get in touch with me." Naruto transforms into an ally and departs in a ray of white light as Lee nods. With a sigh, Lee reflected, "I wish you had been here, Tenten. He is beginning to isolate himself from others." Tenten was given the all-clear to resume duty a week ago. As he walked into the Hokage office with both teams, Kakashi sighed, reflecting on the events of the day the 3 teenagers returned from their trip. Rewind, the third said, "Please wait a few minutes." After Naruto and Lee dropped Tenten off at the hospital and then showed up in the Hokage office, the guards at the gate informed me that you had returned, so I am waiting on Guy and Kakashi. After both boys nod, the 2 Junin enter approximately 5 minutes later. The third individual replied, "All right, now I want to hear what was determined by Tenten." Lee stated, "She passed the actual test and was able to use the ranger powers fully, including her Zord." "So she's a ranger now," the third person said. "No," said Naruto. The third blinked and said, "Why not?" "She passed everything except the last test," Naruto sighed. "When we asked her if she would sacrifice everything to become a Power Ranger, Lee and I responded that if it came down to it, we would choose to be rangers over our duty to this village." "No," she said. "I think she has heard from her family and friends. Ours are limited because Lee and I are already orphans and outcasts, but she is well liked and has family. I don't feel bad about it, and I can understand if that's why she said no. Anyway, while I began the hospital plan, I had Lee knock her out. I'll be in her room when she wakes up in 2 days, pretending to be pleading with her to wake up and telling her that everything she saw and heard was only a fever-induced dream. If she asks me my true name, I will use my mother's name to deceive her because only her father, this office, and those 2 other Junins know who I am. I will also tell her that we were on a mission that failed and that we were attacked by some missing nins who were in the area. She will believe them if I tell her that her injuries are consistent with hitting a tree and getting a kunai cut. Her father won't speak, and if we have to use our abilities, I'll use the Green Ranger's abilities rather than mine, so she won't realize it's me. And Lee won't use his unless absolutely necessary because we don't want Omega to know about him." With a sigh, the third said, "All right, I have some bad news. I went to update your files while you were away because I had finally obtained the IDs for those 2 Iwa nins. However, when I went to your records file, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were not there. No one had signed them out when I checked, and I've already questioned Kakashi about it. Although the Team 9 files were present, they might have been removed and replaced. Given that you have already been attacked, this is concerning. It's also concerning that the last devoted Uchiha is on your team, so I want you all to consider this a potential early promotion for Naruto because of his good and enigmatic skills. Don't approach each other outside of missions until Tenten is awake. Then, pretend to be upset that you failed your team and mission, and both sensei will try to assist him to make the story more credible. Do it in public and make sure to show your concern for Tenten, but avoid mentioning any foreign villages. We can try to identify who is watching Team 7, all of the genin teams, or all of our ninja. If you didn't recognize the village symbol, we can also keep the secret of your actual abilities a secret. That's reasonable, Naruto remarked. The third person said, Naruto, I want you to try to help Tenten after this and figure out why she said no without giving it away. She should discuss it if she thinks it's a dream. Let's say you thought about what she said a lot and wanted to know the truth. I am not going to force her into it, Naruto remarked with a frown. The third replied, of course not, but I am just saying that perhaps something in the near future may change her mind and she would want to be one, and since she actually passed the trials, except for that you won't have to test her again. Lee remarked, I think it's a good idea, Naruto. As Naruto scowled. Despite the fact that she kicked your ass, she did well, was very sly, and worked on her temper. Yeah, I finally let my guard down, and she steps on my neck and floors me, Naruto said. That still hurts my back. Lee replied, are you sure it's not from when she had her Zord dropkick the Dragon Zord? What exactly are Zords again? Inquired Kakashi. The third individual said, mechanical summons Kakashi the size of Gambunta and Kyuubi. Guy asked, how many of those do you have? As Kakashi and Guy both went wide-eyed. About 150, but only a portion of them are currently operational due to a lack of rangers and repairs, Naruto stated. In fact, Alpha and I have been simplifying and improving some of them over the past few years, as well as incorporating some of the smaller ones into some of the solo warrior ones. Well, that is all for now, the third said. I suppose you should all get some rest. How long have we been gone? Inquired Naruto. I can't really recall how many hours there were in a day on the planet we were on, and its length varied from day to day. 3 weeks, said the third. Well, I have some work to do, Naruto said, nodding to make the story more credible. I'll tell Tenten's father she was injured during a mission and is in the hospital so he can visit her. Finish the flashback, the third said. Well, Team Youthful 6, as the door closed, how are you today? Remind me again, why the hell did we let Guy pick the name for our team? Naruto said, turning to face Kakashi. Tenten was still in the hospital. Lee didn't give a damn, and you were busy while I was lost in life. Kakashi remarked. Sakura concurs that Sasuke has a thing for animals, but he doesn't look up from his book. Now, let's get down to business, the third said after clearing his throat. For you, I have a C-rank mission. I think it's important, even though it probably won't be as exciting as your last one. You may enter at this time. Is this the group I am paying my hard money for? Asked the inebriated man who entered through the side door, holding a straw hat and a bottle of sake. He then turned to face the team. They don't appear to be very tough. The third said, I can tell you, Tazuna, that this is one of my best teams on duty at the moment. It has 2 genins, 2 to 4 chunin level genins, and 2 junins. A typical 3-person genin team could now take on this task and finish it, earning you a group discount. Tazuna gives a wink and says, I am the Great Bridge, builder Tazuna from Wave. I expect you to, to protect me until my bridge is done. What threats are we looking at? Asked Naruto, glancing at Tazuna. According to the third, possible bandits and thieves, nothing too dangerous. While the third was talking, Naruto was observing Tazuna when he twitched his hand and briefly appeared sheepish. Right, we will protect you, but we must ask you to refrain from drinking any further until we reach your bridge for your own safety, Lee said as Naruto and Lee nodded slowly. Give up my sake, Tazuna said. Never. Naruto replied, then we can't help it if you walk into an enemy ninja's trap. When Lee appeared behind him and struck him in the neck, Tazuna flinched, took a big swig, and said, now listen her kid, I am paying, you so ninja her, as he passed out. Why did you knock out the client? Inquired the third. He's lying, Lee said. Due to some recent repairs we completed after returning, Naruto and I are both aware that almost all building supplies coming from that region now pass through a business known as the Gado Shipping Corporation. Compared to the rest of the market, their prices are 5 times higher. He's expecting more than he admits, especially when you consider that his body repeatedly betrayed him when you were discussing real threats and his tirade at the end about saying ninja or not speech he was going into. The third scowled and asked, What do you think, Kakashi? If the Gado Shipping Corporation is involved, he would have the money to pay for Ninja, Kakashi said, adding that he flinched when you mentioned nothing too dangerous. In what location is he constructing this bridge? It says it's supposed to connect the mainland to the island of Wave, the third person said. Taking out the scroll Gado's shipping would suffer a significant loss of profit in that area if that were to occur. I hate to say it, but I think the boys are right most likely. This mission has a higher ranking. What do you all think? Naruto declared, we go on. Given that many of our raw materials come from islands off the mainland, the Fire Country itself will soon feel the effects of Gado's price gouging. Lee stated, I agree, if we are prepared for it our team should be more than adequate. This is a chance for me to get stronger, I say. Continue, smirked Sasuke. According to Sakura, oh Sasuke-kun. Ignoring her, Sasuke HNED. Neji looked at Naruto, who was hunched over staring at Neji's butt, and remarked, it is fated for us to do this mission no matter what are you doing? I'm trying to find that fate kunai you shoved up your ass, Naruto uttered. I find it annoying. Neji activates his bloodline and says, leave me alone or I will make you pay. Tenten snickers at this. As he passed by, Naruto said, sorry, didn't mean to get you hemorrhoids hurting. Our young team is ready, sir, Guy remarked with a shrug. Kakashi remarked, I have nothing better to do. Tenten replied, I am in. I feel rusty from being in the hospital and I still don't remember that last mission. That's probably from the hit on your head, Naruto remarked. Don't worry about it. The doctor said it might or might not return. After Tenten nods and sighs, the third person said, very well, what about the client? As he walked back over by Naruto, Lee struck Tazuna in the neck and remarked, he will be up in a moment. What happened? Tazuna asked, groaning as he rubbed his head. Naruto replied, you passed out in the middle of a rant about Gado from drinking too much, so tell us, again from the beginning. All eyes were on Naruto, and Tazuna, unable to think clearly, rubbed his head and uttered, Gado is killing our country. After acquiring all the shipping rights, he hired mercenaries to enforce his regulations. Gado had his men publicly decapitate my son-in-law last year because he disobeyed his orders. When the third person gasped, Naruto remarked, go on, you passed out right before that, so tell us what we need to know. What? I don't remember, Tazuna said, looking perplexed and blinking as he looked up. It's okay, Tazuna, just go pack. When do we leave, sensei? Naruto sighed. As he led Tazuna out of the office, Kakashi remarked, Southgate 2 hours, be prepared for anything, Tazuna come with me. The third said, that was a huge risk, Naruto, after he had left. Naruto responded, no, it's a known fact that drinking as much as he has lately impairs one's ability to think clearly when they first wake up. For this reason, I used the limited information we had to make educated guesses and see what we could learn. We now know that we will encounter ninjas and possibly mercs. That increases our chances of surviving. With a sigh, the third said, excellent, but please don't do it again. It's not always acceptable to question our clients in one way or another. More than half of them tell lies about the mission. You should therefore always be ready for the worst. Sasuke-kun, do you think we should change our eep? Sakura said, looking terrified, as she fell backwards and Sasuke attempted to strike her, but Lee blocked his hand. Lee replied, I may not like her, but don't hit a woman in my presence. As he left the office, Sasuke HMED, she's a weak fangirl who should just quit being a ninja. Please let me kill him, Naruto said. I can make it appear as though a missing nin was responsible. I know, but the answer is no. The village and the council would have a heart attack. The third sighed long ago. I wanted to remove him from the ninja academy, but the council overruled my choice. I could right now, but I would probably lose my job if I did that. According to Naruto, sounds like the council gained power after the Yondaime died. Yes, after UND Amy passed away, the council grabbed a lot of power in the few hours after the Kyuubi defeat, the third said, wiping his eyes. It was too late once I regained control, and I had other things to attend to right now. Tenten shook her head after glancing briefly at Naruto and the third, thinking, he said, Yondaime, your imagination is getting to you, girl. I understand, Naruto said. Since we don't want to be behind Kakashi, I suppose the rest of us had better leave. As they departed, everyone laughed, leaving the third in his mind. Kakashi was there with their client when the team youth reached the gates.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.